My name is Elise. I am 33 years old, and exactly 1 year ago, my husband left me for my best friend because she could give him the one thing I supposedly could not, a child. Today, I am standing in the pristine lobby of a prestigious Seattle medical center when he deliberately blocks my path. He is holding a designer diaper bag projecting absolute arrogance and smirking like he just won the lottery. Leaving you was the best decision I ever made, he tells me, his voice loud enough for passing nurses to hear. A useless woman cannot have children. I am so lucky to have a 1 year old son with your best friend. Instead of crumbling into tears or screaming, I do not break eye contact. I simply smile, a razor-sharp, knowing smile, and reply, "Really?" Because I am watching the second hand on my watch tick closer to the moment his entire fake life implodes. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to watch the people who betrayed you finally get exactly what they deserve. The Seattle Medical Center is exactly the kind of place you go when you have exceptional health insurance and a desire to be seen by the right people. It has floor-to-ceiling glass windows that let in the gray Pacific Northwest light, polished marble floors that echo with every step, and an atmosphere of sterile luxury. I am here for a routine appointment, taking a brief hour away from my forensic accounting firm. As a forensic accountant, my entire career is built on finding the truth hidden beneath layers of deception. I look at numbers, patterns, and behaviors to uncover what people are desperately trying to conceal. I am used to dealing with liars, frauds, and men with inflated egos. But none of my professional experience could have prepared me for the sheer audacity of the man standing in front of me right now. I see him before he sees me. David, my ex-husband. He is 35 years old, a mid-level tech executive who always believed he was the smartest person in any room. He is wearing his typical tech uniform, an expensive fitted zip-up sweater, over a designer t-shirt, dark denim jeans, and pristine sneakers that cost more than a standard mortgage payment. Over his shoulder, he carries a luxury leather diaper bag that probably retails for $2,000. He struts through the hospital lobby with the exaggerated confidence of a man who thinks he has conquered the world. He expects people to look at him. He demands attention with every step he takes. When he spots me walking toward the exit, his eyes light up with a predatory gleam. He does not hesitate. He alters his path, moving quickly to intercept me. He steps directly in front of me, planting his feet firmly on the polished marble floor, deliberately blocking my way to the sliding glass doors. There is no way for me to walk around him without causing a physical collision. He wants this confrontation. He has been craving it. For an entire year, he has been building a narrative about how he is the ultimate victor in our divorce. And seeing me here is his perfect opportunity to gloat in person. "Well, well, well," David says, crossing his arms over his chest. The designer diaper bag shifts on his shoulder, a calculated prop in his performance. I look at him, taking in the smug satisfaction radiating from his pores. I do not say a word, letting his own awkwardness fill the silence. But David has never been good at reading the room. He thrives on putting others down to elevate himself. "Leaving you was the best decision I ever made," he declares, his voice dripping with venom. He leans in slightly, invading my personal space, wanting to make sure I catch every syllable of his cruelty. "A useless woman cannot have children. I am so lucky to have a 1 year old son with your best friend." The words are designed to be a fatal blow. They are weaponized to strike at the deepest insecurities a woman can have. He wants to see me flinch. He wants to see my eyes well up with tears. He wants me to drop my head in shame, to apologize for my supposed inadequacies, to run away broken and humiliated in the middle of a crowded hospital lobby. He is waiting for the emotional collapse that would validate his terrible choices and feed his massive ego. He is waiting for me to act like the weak, discarded wife he desperately needs me to be. But I am not that woman. I am a forensic accountant. I deal in hard facts, undeniable evidence, and cold reality. I do not break eye contact. I do not let a single emotion cross my face. I stand my ground, my posture perfectly straight, my hands relaxed at my sides. I look at the designer diaper bag, then back up to his smug, self-satisfied face. Let us take a closer look at this hospital lobby. The air smells of strong antiseptic mixed with expensive coffee from the artisanal cafe in the corner. People are rushing past us, doctors in white coats, nurses carrying clipboards, families holding on to each other for support. Amidst all this real human drama, David stands like a monument to his own vanity. I watch the way he puffs out his chest. I note the slight tightening of his jaw when I do not immediately collapse. My forensic training kicks in automatically. When auditing a fraudulent company, you do not just look at the numbers. You look at the behavior of the executives. Liars always overcompensate. They brag too loudly. They buy flashy things to distract from the rot underneath. David is holding that diaper bag like a trophy, a shield to hide behind, completely oblivious to the fact that he is parading around a counterfeit asset. He is not finished trying to hurt me. When my silence stretches on, his ego demands more. You know, Elise. He continues, shifting his weight. I actually pity you. I really do. You are going to spend the rest of your life alone, burying yourself in your spreadsheets and your audits, pretending that your career makes up for the fact that you are an empty shell. Megan gave me a real family. She gave me a legacy. Something you were biologically incapable of doing. Every single day I wake up and look at my son, I am thankful I got out when I did. He spits the words at me, trying to find a chink in my armor. He is practically vibrating with the need to assert his dominance. I analyze his body language. The slight tremor in his hands, the overly loud volume of his voice, the way his eyes dart around to see if anyone in the lobby is witnessing his grand declaration of victory. He is a mid-level executive who desperately wants to be seen as a titan of industry. He wants to be admired. He wants to be feared. But right now, standing in front of me, he just looks incredibly foolish. It takes an immense amount of discipline not to laugh out loud. I have spent the last 12 months carrying a secret so heavy, so explosive, that it has fundamentally changed how I view the world. I have endured the whispers of our former social circle. I have walked through grocery stores pretending not to notice the pitying glances from women who think my husband left me because my body was broken. I have swallowed the bitter taste of betrayal as my former best friend paraded around town with my ex-husband, playing the role of the loving maternal savior. I endured all of it because I knew this day would come. I knew that revenge is not a sudden explosion of anger. True revenge, sweet and devastating revenge, is a carefully calculated audit. It is gathering the receipts, verifying the ledgers, and waiting for the exact right moment to present the final bill. So when I say, really, the word hangs in the air between us like a suspended blade, David frowns. What is that supposed to mean? He snaps, his confidence faltering for a fraction of a second. You always do this. You always act like you are smarter than everyone else. It is pathetic, Elise. You have nothing. I slowly lift my left wrist, pulling back the sleeve of my blazer to expose my watch. The silver hands tick forward with rhythmic, beautiful precision. I watch the sweeping motion of the second hand. 10 seconds. 20 seconds. The anticipation is a physical sensation in my chest, a warm glow of impending justice. The air between us feels electric. David opens his mouth to launch another insult to try and regain the upper hand. He feels slipping away, but I hold up a single finger, silencing him instantly. The gesture is so authoritative, so entirely dismissive of his attempts to wound me, that he actually snaps his mouth shut. He looks at my raised finger, then at the watch on my wrist, and finally back to my face. The confusion in his eyes is delicious. For 12 months he has told himself a story where he is the conquering hero, and I am the discarded casualty. My calm demeanor is rewriting his script in real time, and he does not know how to process it. I let the silence stretch, letting him sit in his sudden, uncomfortable uncertainty. The hospital lobby continues to hum with activity around us, completely ignorant of the fact that the ground beneath David's feet is about to crumble into dust. I am completely unfazed by his cruelty. I do not feel anger anymore. I do not feel sadness. I only feel the cold, sharp focus of an auditor who has just found the fatal discrepancy in the books. I know the truth about the baby he thinks is his legacy. I know the unalterable medical reality of his own body. And I know exactly who is scheduled to walk down this very hallway to attend a hospital board meeting in a matter of minutes. I look back up at David, my smile widening just a fraction. I am simply waiting for the timer to count down, waiting for the universe to deliver the punchline to the greatest joke he ever played on himself. Exactly 5 minutes pass. The heavy glass doors of the pediatric wing slide open with a soft mechanical hum that seems to cut right through the ambient noise of the hospital lobby. Out steps Megan. She has the baby boy perched carefully on her left hip. Seeing her in the flesh after 12 long months brings a slight involuntary tightening to my chest, a phantom ache from a severed limb. For 10 solid years, Megan was the first person I called with good news and the only person I wanted around when my world felt like it was falling apart. We shared cramped college dorm rooms, navigated terrible breakups together, and stayed up until dawn mapping out our grand visions for the future. Now she is playing the role she ruthlessly stole from me. She is dressed in an immaculate cashmere cardigan and soft, neutral tones that scream wealthy, put together suburban motherhood. She is holding a glass baby bottle filled with milk, playing the part of the devoted, exhausted, but blissfully happy new mother. David immediately turns toward her, his chest puffing out even further under his expensive zip-up sweater. He raises his hand to wave a proud, sickening grin stretching across his face as he prepares to show off his stolen family to the woman he believes is his barren ex-wife. He anticipates a glorious reunion, a moment where he can physically demonstrate his superiority. But Megan does not look at him. Her eyes sweep the busy lobby, scanning the faces of passing doctors and patients. And then they land directly on me. She freezes. Her forward momentum halts so abruptly that the baby shifts uncomfortably against her side, letting out a small, confused whimper. The color begins to drain from her cheeks, leaving her looking pale and suddenly fragile. Megan knows me better than anyone else on this earth. She knows I do not make public scenes. She knows I do not show up at high-end medical facilities accidentally. Seeing me standing here perfectly composed, perfectly still, wearing a tailored suit and a neutral expression sends a visible shockwave through her nervous system. David is completely oblivious to her sudden, rigid panic. He thinks she is just surprised to see his defeated ex-wife standing near the exit. He gestures for her to come closer, eager to parade his ultimate victory right under my nose. But Megan stays rooted to the floor tile. She is staring at me, her eyes wide and fearful, frantically searching my face for any hint of what I'm about to do. I give her absolutely nothing. I maintain the exact same pleasant razor-sharp smile. At that exact moment, the brass elevator doors at the far end of the adjacent corridor glide open. The atmosphere in the lobby subtly but undeniably shifts. People instinctively part to make way, recognizing authority when it walks into a room. Walking down the polished marble corridor is Harrison. He is 48 years old, a venture capitalist whose personal net worth could easily buy and sell this entire hospital wing. He is flanked by the chief of medicine and two senior hospital administrators who are practically tripping over their own feet to keep up with his brisk, commanding pace. Harrison is a major donor to this hospital, the kind of man whose name gets carved into marble walls and bronze plaques in the main atrium. He is wearing a tailored charcoal suit that whispers of old money and absolute unchecked power. His silver hair is perfectly styled, his jawline sharp, his presence demanding immediate respect from everyone he passes. More importantly, he is the primary financial backer of the tech firm where David works. To David, Harrison is a god, a titan of industry, to be worshipped, feared, and relentlessly courted. David has spent the last 12 months desperately trying to get noticed by Harrison, hoping for a promotion, a bonus, or just a simple nod of approval from the man who controls his professional destiny. I watch Harrison walk. I study the confident stride, the expensive leather shoes clicking rhythmically against the floor. I note the slight arrogant tilt of his chin. As a forensic accountant, I have spent the last few months intimately acquainting myself with every hidden corner of Harrison's life. I know his corporate accounts. I know his discretionary funds. I know the exact offshore shell companies he uses to hide his most expensive mistakes from his very formidable, very wealthy wife. I know the man behind the tailored suit better than his own family does. Megan is still staring at me, paralyzed by my presence, when the sound of the approaching hospital administrators catches her attention. The clicking of dress shoes and the low murmur of respectful conversation draw her gaze away from me. She turns her head slightly toward the adjacent corridor. She sees the men in white coats. Then she sees the man walking in the center of them. She sees Harrison. If the blood had drained from her face when she saw me, seeing Harrison turns her completely translucent. Absolute, unadulterated terror washes over her features, twisting her face into a mask of pure panic. Her breath catches audibly in her throat. She knows exactly who he is, and she knows exactly why he absolutely cannot see her here standing next to David holding this specific child. Her eyes dart wildly between Harrison, who is steadily closing the distance down the corridor, and David, who is eagerly stepping forward to intercept his boss, desperate to make a good impression. Megan takes a sudden step backward, an instinctive panicked retreat from the collision course of her two worlds. Her hands begin to tremble violently. Her fingers lose their grip. The heavy glass baby bottle she has been holding slips from her weak grasp. It falls in slow motion, tumbling through the air before hitting the hard marble floor. The sound of shattering glass echoes sharply across the quiet lobby, sounding like a gunshot in the sterile environment. Milk splatters everywhere, splashing onto her expensive leather boots and ruining David's pristine sneakers. Shards of thick glass slide across the polished floor, catching the fluorescent light. The sudden, violent noise causes dozens of heads to turn. The baby, startled by the loud crash and the sudden jolt of his mother's panic, begins to cry loudly, a piercing wail that cuts through the air. David looks down at the mess, his carefully constructed image of perfection instantly ruined by spilled milk and broken glass. He lets out an annoyed sigh, but quickly reaches out to steady Megan. His voice drops into a soothing, patronizing tone as he asks her what is wrong, loudly blaming her clumsiness on the exhaustion of new motherhood for the benefit of anyone listening. He is utterly blind to the reality unfolding around him. He thinks his wife just dropped a bottle because she is tired. He has no idea she has just dropped the illusion of their entire existence. I stand perfectly still, watching the scene play out like a beautifully orchestrated symphony. Megan is shaking uncontrollably now, clutching the crying baby tightly to her chest, her eyes wide with a trapped, hunted look. She is staring at Harrison, who has paused his conversation with the chief of medicine, drawn by the sound of the shattering glass. Harrison's eyes are scanning the lobby, his gaze moving steadily toward the commotion. He is seconds away from seeing the woman whose luxury condo he secretly funds standing next to the low-level tech executive she married, holding the child he fathered. David is fussing over the spilled milk, grabbing napkins from the designer diaper bag, entirely ignorant of the massive collision course of lies intersecting right above his head. He is a man standing cheerfully on the train tracks, complaining about a pebble in his shoe while a massive freight train bears down on him at full speed. I watch Megan tremble. I watch the pure, suffocating dread consume her entire body. She looks at me one last time, ignoring the mess at her feet, ignoring David's patronizing comfort. In my calm, unbothered gaze, she finally understands. She realizes this meeting is not a coincidence. She realizes I am not standing in this lobby by accident. She realizes I know everything. The satisfaction that blooms inside me is cold, precise, and absolute. When my life was destroyed, I did not scream. I did not key their cars, burn their clothes, or beg for explanations. I simply did what I do best. I gathered the raw data. I followed the hidden paper trail. I built an airtight, undeniable case, and I waited patiently for the perfect moment to present my findings to the board. Before Harrison reaches them, before the first word of panicked recognition can be spoken, before the massive explosion that will level David's entire world finally detonates in this pristine hospital lobby, my mind pulls backward. The frantic crying of the baby, the sound of David's oblivious voice, and the sharp clicking of Harrison's approaching shoes fade into silence. To understand the sheer poetry of this exact moment, to understand how I orchestrated this perfect, devastating trap, and what dark clinical truth I know that David does not, you have to go back. You have to rewind the clock to the day my life was stolen. Exactly 1 year ago. Exactly 1 year ago. The air in the waiting room of the Seattle Reproductive Medicine Center tastes like stale mints and clinical anxiety. The clinic is located on the top floor of a high-rise downtown, featuring panoramic views of the Puget Sound, plush velvet seating, and an atmosphere designed to make wealthy couples feel relaxed about spending small fortunes on their fertility journeys. But there is absolutely nothing relaxing about the current situation. I am sitting on a stiff leather couch, staring straight ahead at a framed print of a blooming lotus flower on the pale gray wall. The silence in the room is suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of a perfectly manicured fingernail against the brass hardware of a designer handbag. The tapping belongs to Patricia. David's mother is 60 years old, dripping in old money aesthetics and a heavy cloud of expensive floral perfume. She is wearing a stiff tweed blazer and a pearl necklace that probably costs more than the advanced medical equipment in the adjacent examination rooms. The fact that my mother-in-law is present for a deeply private medical appointment regarding our fertility struggles tells you everything you need to know about the boundaries in my marriage, or rather the complete lack of them. David insisted she come today. He told me he needed the emotional support because the stress of not being a father was tearing him apart. What he really needed, I now realize, was an audience for his performance and a co-conspirator for his cruelty. Patricia stops tapping her nail against her bag and turns her sharp, predatory gaze toward me. I was talking to Eleanor at the country club yesterday. She begins her tone falsely sweet, but laced with absolute arsenic. Her daughter just announced her third pregnancy. 3 healthy, beautiful children. And she does not even work. She focuses entirely on her family the way a proper woman should. I keep my eyes locked on the lotus poster across the room. I do not take the bait. I know exactly what she is trying to do. But Patricia is not used to being ignored, and my silence only fuels her entitlement. You know, Elise, she continues, leaning forward so I can smell the mint on her breath. The human body is very simple. It reacts to its environment. If you insist on working 80-hour weeks poring over complex financial ledgers, hunting down corporate fraud, like some kind of relentless detective, your body will naturally shut down its maternal functions. You are essentially starving your own reproductive system with your aggressive ambition. I finally turn my head to look at her. Patricia, the doctor, has not given us the comprehensive test results yet, I say, keeping my voice perfectly level. We do not know what the medical issue is. We have no data to support your theory. She lets out a sharp, condescending laugh that echoes in the quiet waiting room. Oh, please. We know exactly what the issue is. My son comes from a long line of robust, healthy men. David played varsity sports. He is in peak physical condition. The problem is not on his end. The problem is that you are practically 33 years old, and you have prioritized a forensic accounting firm over giving this family a proper heir. You are barren by choice, Elise. You traded your fertility for a corner office and a false sense of superiority. I look at David, expecting him to intervene. I expect the man who stood at an altar and vowed to love and protect me to shut down his mother's vicious, baseless attack. He is sitting on my other side, staring down at his phone, his jaw tight and his shoulders rigid. David, I say quietly, are you really going to let her speak to me like this? David locks his phone screen and slowly turns his head to face me. His eyes are entirely cold, completely devoid of any warmth, partnership, or empathy. He looks at me not as a wife, but as a defective asset that is depreciating in value. My mother is right, Elise, he says, his voice flat and unapologetic. The betrayal hits me like a physical blow to the chest. It is one thing to know your mother-in-law hates you. It is an entirely different level of devastation to realize your husband has been actively feeding her that hatred behind your back. She is right. he repeats, leaning closer, his voice dropping into a harsh, aggressive whisper. You have completely neglected your fundamental duties as a wife. I am 35 years old. All of my colleagues, all the senior executives at my tech firm, they all have children. The partners bring their kids to the company retreats. The men I look up to, the men who run the world, they all have families to pass their legacies down to. Do you have any idea how humiliating it is for me? I am the only man at my level, with a wife who cannot even perform a basic biological function. I stare at him, feeling the foundation of our entire marriage cracking and splitting beneath me. You think this is my fault? I ask, my voice trembling just a fraction as the reality of his cruelty sinks in. I think you destroyed your own body. David sneers, emboldened by his mother's enthusiastic nodding beside me. You run around acting like this tough, unstoppable auditor, tearing down other people's companies, playing the corporate tough girl. And for what? Look at you. You are stressed out, run down, and totally useless to me. You made your career your baby Elise, and now you are making me pay the ultimate price for your selfish, unnatural choices. Patricia reaches over my lap and pats David's knee affectionately, comforting him for the burden of being married to me. It is a tragedy, David. You deserve a real woman. A maternal, nurturing woman who understands that a man's legacy is the most important thing in the world. She glances at me with a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. Not someone who brings her laptop to bed and thinks reading tax laws makes her superior to biology. I sit perfectly still between the two of them. I do not cry. Crying is what they expect. It is what they want. They want to break my spirit down right here in this waiting room, so I will agree to whatever demands come next. They want me to quit my firm. They want me to pay for endless rounds of invasive, painful fertility treatments out of my own pocket. They want me to accept total blame for a medical mystery we do not even have the actual answers to yet. But I am a forensic accountant. My entire life is dedicated to uncovering the truth. I do not accept blame without seeing the hard data. I do not sign the bottom line until I have personally audited the receipts. While David and Patricia sit beside me, vibrating with their shared toxic superiority, a profound shift happens inside my brain. The emotional grieving wife shuts down completely. The cold analytical professional takes over. I stop looking at David as the man I love. I start looking at him as a hostile entity. A nurse opens the heavy oak door leading to the inner medical offices. Elise and David, she calls out, with a warm, sympathetic smile that feels entirely out of place in our hostile environment. Dr. Evans is ready to review your comprehensive panel results now. David stands up immediately, brushing invisible lint off his expensive trousers. He looks down at me, his expression radiating absolute arrogant certainty. Let us go hear the doctor confirm exactly what we already know, he says, his voice dripping with condescension. And then, Elise, we are going to have a very serious conversation about the future of this marriage because I refuse to be tied down to a dead end. He turns and walks toward the doctor's office, expecting me to follow obediently behind him like a scolded, guilty child. Patricia gives me one last triumphant smirk before pulling out her phone, already dismissing me as a lost cause, fully confident that her son is about to be legally cleared of any medical wrongdoing. I stand up slowly, smoothing the wrinkles from my tailored skirt. I take a deep breath of the sterile, mint-scented air. I do not know what the test results in that folder will say. I do not know what scientific reality is waiting for me behind that heavy oak door. But I know with absolute certainty that this marriage is already dead. The man walking ahead of me is no longer my partner. He is my adversary, and I am about to walk into that medical office and find out exactly what kind of ammunition I have to fight back. Just as my hand reaches for the brass handle of the heavy oak door, a sharp electronic chime shatters the tension in the corridor. David stops abruptly. He pulls his phone from his pocket, his eyes lighting up as he reads the caller ID. The cold, disdainful husband vanishes, replaced instantly by the eager, subservient corporate climber. He holds up a finger to me, signaling me to wait, and answers the call with a sickeningly enthusiastic tone. He turns his back to me, pacing a few steps down the hallway. "Yes, sir," I hear him say. "I can review those quarterlies right now." "No, It is not a bad time at all. He covers the receiver with his hand and looks back at me. It is a critical work call, he whispers sharply, his face tight with impatience. Go in there and get the results yourself. We already know what the doctor is going to say anyway. I need to take this. Before I can respond, he turns away and strides toward the far end of the corridor, nodding enthusiastically into his phone. He is literally walking away from the moment of truth to kiss up to a senior executive. I watch his retreating figure for a long moment, capturing the image in my mind. He is abandoning me to face the supposedly devastating news alone. I push open the door and step into Dr. Evans's office. The space is surprisingly warm, filled with natural light and the soft hum of a white noise machine. Dr. Evans sits behind a polished wooden desk holding a thick manila folder. She looks up, her eyes immediately scanning the empty space behind me. Is David not joining us? She asks, her brow furrowing in slight concern. He had to take an urgent business call, I reply, taking a seat in one of the plush chairs opposite her desk. He told me to proceed without him. Dr. Evans sighs softly, a sound that carries years of experience dealing with difficult spouses. She opens the folder, aligning the papers with precise, deliberate movements. The forensic accountant in me appreciates her methodical approach. She does not rush. She is organizing the data before presenting the bottom line. Elise, she begins, her tone gentle, but strictly professional. We ran a comprehensive panel on both of you, leaving no stone unturned. I want to start with your results. I brace myself. I prepare to hear the clinical confirmation of Patricia's vicious insults. I prepare to be told that my late nights, my stress, and my ambition have permanently ruined my body. Your hormone levels are absolutely perfect, Dr. Evans says smoothly. Your ovarian reserve is optimal for a woman your age. Your thyroid function, your uterine lining, your hormonal balance, everything is flawless. From a biological standpoint, Elise, you are highly fertile. There is absolutely no medical reason why you cannot conceive and carry a healthy child to term. The words hit me like a sudden rush of cold air. I sit perfectly still, my mind frantically processing the information. Highly fertile. Flawless. I am not broken. I am not a defective asset. The crushing weight of guilt that I have been carrying for the past 2 years, the heavy burden that David and Patricia placed squarely on my shoulders, begins to evaporate. But if I am perfectly healthy, I say, my voice barely above a whisper, then why are we not getting pregnant? Dr. Evans closes my file and opens the second one, David's file. Her expression shifts from reassuring to deeply sympathetic. The burden of delivering bad news settles over her features. When we perform semen analysis, we look at several factors, she explains quietly. Sperm count, motility, and morphology. In David's case, we ran the test 3 times to be absolutely certain of the results. Elise, David has a condition known as non-obstructive azoospermia. I lean forward, the analytical part of my brain demanding clarity. What does that mean in practical terms? It means there is a complete absence of sperm in his seminal fluid, she says. His body is simply not producing them. We ran an extensive background panel to determine the cause. David's blood work shows specific antibody markers indicating a severe untreated viral infection during his late childhood, most likely a severe case of mumps that spread to his reproductive organs. The resulting inflammation caused permanent, irreversible damage to the testicular tissue. The silence in the office is absolute. The ticking of the wall clock sounds like a hammer striking an anvil. Irreversible, I repeat, ensuring I have the facts perfectly straight. Yes, Dr. Evans confirms softly. I am incredibly sorry, Elise. David is completely sterile. It is biologically impossible for him to ever father a child naturally. I stare at the medical file on the desk. The irony is so massive, so profoundly devastating that it physically takes my breath away. For an entire year, David has blamed me. He has allowed his mother to tear me down, to call me a failure, to mock my career and my womanhood. He just stood in the waiting room 10 minutes ago and told me I was useless, that I had destroyed my own body, that I was denying him his rightful legacy. And all this time, he was the one firing blanks. His own body was the dead end. The sheer cruelty of his behavior clashes violently with the tragic reality of his medical condition. As deeply angry as I am about his treatment of me, another emotion rises up to meet it: profound, crushing sadness. David is a man whose entire identity is wrapped up in his ego, his masculinity, and his image. He believes he is destined to leave a grand legacy behind. Hearing this news will not just break his heart, it will shatter his entire sense of self. May I have copies of the complete files? I ask, my voice returning to its steady, professional cadence. Of course, Dr. Evans says, sliding a sealed envelope across the desk. I strongly recommend that you and David come back together so I can explain this to him directly. This kind of diagnosis requires extensive counseling. I will make sure he understands the medical reality, I promise, taking the envelope. I walk out of the office and step back into the bright corridor. I look around, but David is nowhere to be seen. I pull out my phone and see a text message from him sent 5 minutes ago. The text reads, "The boss needed me back at the office immediately. Have to save the company. Let me know what the doctor said. Do not bother making dinner tonight. I am grabbing drinks with the team." He did not even wait. He threw his verbal grenades in the waiting room and then abandoned the battlefield completely. I slide the phone back into my pocket, gripping the medical file tightly in my left hand. The drive home from downtown Seattle to our suburban house takes exactly 45 minutes. The sky has turned a bruised, heavy purple, and a steady rhythmic rain begins to fall against my windshield. The rhythmic squeak of the windshield wipers serves as a metronome for my racing thoughts. I am sitting alone in the driver's seat, trapped inside a glass box of conflicting emotions. The relief is undeniable. It washes over me in warm, comforting waves. My body is capable. I am healthy. I can be a mother one day. The horrific narrative Patricia constructed about my career poisoning my fertility is scientifically dead. I feel a profound sense of gratitude toward my own biology. But right beside that relief sits a massive, heavy block of grief. My husband, the man I promised to build a life with, is going to be utterly destroyed by this. I audit the situation in my mind, weighing the emotional liabilities. David has been incredibly cruel to me today. He has been a terrible partner. But nobody deserves to have their deepest biological hopes ripped away from them without warning. As a wife, it is my duty to break this news to him with as much grace and compassion as I can possibly muster. I grip the steering wheel, rehearsing the conversation out loud in the empty car. The rain pounds against the glass. "David, the doctor gave me the results. I need you to sit down. We are in this together, all right. We are a team." No, that sounds too patronizing. He will instantly put his walls up. I try again. "David, it turns out the issue is not with me. The test showed an anomaly from a childhood illness." That sounds too clinical, too cold. I need to cushion the blow. I need to protect his fragile, oversized ego while delivering a fatal diagnosis. I spend the entire 45-minute commute agonizing over my tone, my word choices, and my body language. I plan to make him his favorite coffee. I plan to sit next to him on the sofa, hold his hand, and tell him that blood does not make a family. I plan to tell him we can look into adoption, that we can find another way to build our legacy, that my love for him is not conditional on his ability to provide genetics. I am pouring all of my emotional energy into being the supportive, loving, empathetic wife he does not deserve. I am setting aside my own anger over his behavior in the waiting room, because I know the pain he is about to experience will dwarf my own resentment. I pull into our driveway, the tires crunching over the wet gravel. The lights are on inside the house. David's luxury sedan is parked in the garage, meaning he skipped the team drinks he mentioned in his text. I turn off the engine and sit in the silence of the car for one final moment. I look down at the sealed envelope sitting on the passenger seat. The undisputed truth, the ultimate ledger. I take a deep, steadying breath, preparing myself to walk into my house and completely dismantle my husband's pride with kindness. I pick up the envelope, step out into the cold Seattle rain, and unlock the front door. I am entirely focused on managing David's tragedy. I have absolutely no idea that I am walking directly into an ambush, and that the compassion I have spent the last hour cultivating is about to be weaponized against me by the two people I trust most in the world. The heavy oak door swings inward with a soft click. The entryway of our suburban Seattle home is usually draped in quiet shadows at this hour, welcoming me back from long days of corporate audits and financial investigations. Tonight, however, the dining room lights are blazing. The bright artificial glare spills across the hardwood floors, illuminating a scene that instantly triggers every alarm bell in my nervous system. I step inside, shaking the cold rain from my coat, holding my leather briefcase tightly against my side. Inside that briefcase is the sealed medical envelope containing the absolute truth of David's biological reality. I have spent the entire commute preparing myself to be the soft, empathetic wife. I have carefully packaged my own anger, ready to prioritize his inevitable grief. But the grief I expected to find is nowhere to be seen. Sitting at our custom mahogany dining table are two people, my husband David, and a woman I have trusted implicitly for a decade. Megan, my best friend, the woman who stood beside me at the altar holding my bouquet, the woman who knows my deepest fears and my greatest ambitions. They are sitting incredibly close to one another. Their posture is rigid, defensive, and undeniably united. David has his arm draped protectively over the back of Megan's chair. His hand rests heavily on her shoulder. For a fraction of a second, my brain attempts to rationalize the image. I assume David came home, broke down over the stress of the fertility clinic appointment, and called Megan for emotional support. I take a step forward, preparing to ask what is going on, but the words die in my throat as I finally register the expression on David's face. He does not look broken. He does not look sad or seeking comfort. He looks triumphant. He is radiating a toxic, overpowering arrogance that fills the entire room. He stares at me as I stand dripping wet in the entryway, and his eyes are filled with pure, unadulterated contempt. "You can put the briefcase down, Elise," David says, his voice slicing through the tense silence of the house. "We need to talk, and I am not interested in dragging this out." I remain standing exactly where I am. The forensic auditor inside me begins to rapidly assess the situation. The protective stance, the smug expression. Megan avoiding my direct gaze, staring down at her perfectly manicured hands resting on my dining table. "I am filing for divorce," David announces. The words are delivered coldly with absolutely no preamble or hesitation. "Effective immediately. I have already contacted my lawyers. I want you out of this house by the end of the week." The shock of the statement hits me, but it is immediately followed by a wave of confusion. I assume this is his knee-jerk reaction to the clinic. I assume he is punishing me because he ran away before getting the results and still fully believes I am the reason we cannot conceive. He is abandoning the marriage because he thinks I am a defective asset. Before I can even formulate a response, David delivers the secondary strike, dropping a bombshell that alters the very fabric of my reality. He moves his hand from the back of the chair and places it gently, almost reverently, over Megan's flat stomach. "Megan is pregnant," David states, puffing his chest out in a sickening display of toxic virility. "We are having a child. My child." The air in the room completely evaporates. My mind stutters, trying to process the auditory information. My husband, my best friend, a pregnancy. David leans back, a cruel, satisfied smile spreading across his face. He wants to make sure I understand the full magnitude of his supposed victory. "I told you my mother was right," he sneers. "I told you the problem was you. You spent years destroying your own body with your aggressive career, starving yourself of any natural maternal instincts. You made me feel like less of a man because I was shackled to a barren woman. But Megan proved you wrong. She gave me exactly what you could not. A legacy." As soon as David finishes his speech, Megan shifts into motion. It is a highly choreographed performance. She looks up at me, her eyes welling with moisture. She produces a tissue from her sleeve and dabs at the corners of her eyes, squeezing out perfect, manipulative crocodile tears. "Elise, I am so sorry." Megan whimpers, her voice trembling with practiced fragility. "I swear to you, I never meant for anyone to get hurt. We did not plan this. It was just a one-time mistake of passion." She looks at David, her eyes brimming with faux devotion, before turning her gaze back to me. Her voice drops into an apologetic tone that is dripping with absolute condescension. "You have to understand, Elise. David was just so broken. He was so incredibly depressed living with a wife who was completely defective. He was hurting. He needed comfort. He needed to feel like a real man capable of doing what natural men do. I just wanted to hold him and comfort him. One thing led to another, and it just happened. Megan places her hand over David's, reinforcing their united front against me. She looks at me with an expression of feigned sickening pity. This baby is a miracle, Elise. You need to understand that family is everything to David. You could not give him that. I can. Please try to find it in your heart to step aside peacefully. I stand perfectly still in the entryway of the home I paid the mortgage on. For 3 seconds, absolute devastation threatens to snap my spine. The betrayal is so profound, so layered, that it feels like a physical assault. My husband of 5 years, the best friend I have loved like a sister for 10. They have been carrying on an affair behind my back, violating the sanctity of my home, and now they are using this pregnancy to execute me emotionally. But then something miraculous happens. The emotional grieving wife who is prepared to mourn a tragic diagnosis vanishes entirely. The highly trained, ruthlessly logical forensic accountant takes the wheel. The gears in my mind begin to grind, sorting the raw data they have just handed me, comparing it against the verified ledgers of reality. I tighten my grip on the handle of my leather briefcase, the briefcase containing Dr. Evans' sealed medical file. My brain replays the doctor's words from exactly 1 hour ago. Complete absence of sperm, irreversible tissue damage, 100% sterile, biologically impossible for him to ever father a child naturally. The math does not compute. I look at Megan's fake, trembling tears. I look at her hand resting on her stomach. I look at David's arrogant, puffed-out chest, a man so desperately insecure about his own masculinity that he is practically vibrating with pride over his ability to procreate. The truth dawns on me in brilliant, horrifying, magnificent clarity. David cannot be the father. Science dictates that it is an absolute impossibility. Megan is indeed pregnant, but she is pregnant with someone else's child. She has found herself in a desperate situation. She is carrying a baby she cannot explain, and she needs a fall guy. She needs a meal ticket. She needs someone gullible enough, wealthy enough, and desperate enough for a legacy to claim the child as his own without ever demanding a DNA test. She chose David. She targeted the immense fragile ego of my husband. She knew he was desperately insecure about our fertility struggles. She fed him the exact lie he wanted to hear, that he was a virile, dominant man whose only obstacle was his defective wife. He bought the deception hook, line, and sinker. He never questioned it for a single second, because questioning the paternity would mean questioning his own precious manhood. I am standing in my dining room looking at two fools who have just locked themselves in a burning building. My hand twitches toward the clasp of my briefcase. I could open it right now. I could pull out the stark white hospital paper, drop it onto the dining table, and watch David's arrogant world explode into a million jagged pieces. I could watch Megan's manipulative performance crumble as the man she is trying to trap realizes he is being played for an absolute fool. I could annihilate them both before I even take off my wet coat, but I pause. If I drop the bomb now, David will indeed be destroyed, but the blast radius will be chaotic. He will lash out. He will drag the divorce out for years in a messy, unpredictable rage. He will try to take half my firm out of pure spite before the dust settles. A forensic auditor knows that you do not confront the embezzler the moment you find the first fake receipt. You secure the assets. You lock down the accounts. You wait until they have spent the stolen money and back themselves into a legal corner from which there is absolutely no escape. I release my grip on the briefcase clasp. I feel a slow, terrifying smile spread across my face. It is a cold, calculated expression that has absolutely no warmth in it. The smile causes David to falter slightly. He was expecting screaming. He was expecting me to throw plates, to collapse onto the floor in a puddle of tears, to beg him to stay. My total lack of a breakdown unnerves him. I do not say a single word to them. I turn on my heel and walk calmly down the hallway to the master bedroom. I pull a medium-sized suitcase from the closet and methodically pack 5 days' worth of professional clothing, my essential toiletries, and my backup hard drives containing the financial records for my business. My hands do not shake. My breathing is perfectly even. I am packing for a war they do not even realize has been declared. I zip the suitcase shut, grab my briefcase, and walk back into the dining room. David and Megan are still sitting at the table watching me with growing unease. My silence is suffocating them. I stop near the front door. I look at Megan taking in the full measure of her betrayal. I look at David observing the pathetic, fragile male ego that has just signed its own death warrant. I feel the weight of the medical file in my briefcase, the ultimate trump card resting safely against my leg. Congratulations to you both, I say, my voice ringing out with crystal clear, chilling precision. You deserve each other. I open the heavy oak door and step out into the stormy Seattle night. I pull the door shut behind me with a firm, definitive click, leaving them completely, utterly confused by my calm departure. They think they have just won the ultimate victory. They have absolutely no idea that I have just walked away with the detonator to their entire lives. The rain hits my face the moment the heavy oak door clicks shut behind me. I walk down the driveway, leaving David and Megan in the dining room, completely oblivious to the fact that they have just handed me the key to their destruction. I do not look back. I get into my car, place my briefcase on the passenger seat, and drive into the dark, stormy Seattle night. I check into a high-end hotel downtown, order room service, and sleep better than I have in months. The legal assault begins less than 48 hours later. I am sitting at the sleek glass desk in my forensic accounting firm when the process server arrives. He hands me a thick manila envelope. I sign for it with a perfectly steady hand. I open it, spreading the crisp legal documents across my desk. David did not just file for divorce. He declared a financial world war. He hired one of the most aggressive, notoriously ruthless divorce attorneys in Seattle, a man known for bleeding spouses dry and dragging mediations out until the opposing party collapses from sheer bankruptcy. I read through the demands. They are staggering in their audacity. David is petitioning for full ownership of our marital home. He wants the investment portfolios. He wants the cars. But the absolute centerpiece of his legal assault is the demand for exactly 50% of my forensic accounting firm. His lawyer has crafted a beautifully venomous argument claiming that my business was entirely built on marital funds, that David financed my early startup costs, and that his emotional support was the primary driver of my professional success. He is arguing that because I neglected my wifely duties and failed to provide a family, he is entitled to massive financial compensation for the prime years of his life that I allegedly wasted. My desk phone rings. It is not David. It is Patricia. I know I should let it go to voicemail, but my analytical brain wants to gather as much data on their strategy as possible. I press the speaker button. You have 24 hours to agree to my son's terms, Elise, Patricia barks. Her voice is shrill, vibrating with toxic triumph. Do not try to fight this. You are a barren, selfish woman who drove her husband into the arms of someone who actually knows how to be a mother. If you drag this into court, I will personally make sure every single person in our social circle, every client at your little firm, knows exactly what kind of failure you are. I remain perfectly silent, letting her dig her grave deeper. David is buying a massive 5-bedroom estate in Bellevue. Patricia continues, eager to twist the knife. It has a beautiful nursery. He needs your liquidated assets for the down payment. It is the absolute least you can do to repay him for the years you stole from him. Megan is going to give him a real legacy. You are going to sign over your firm hand over the house and disappear quietly. If you fight him, we will ruin you. I reach over and press the button to end the call. The motive is now officially on the record. David is not just trying to walk away. He is trying to completely bankrupt me to finance his fake suburban dream life with Megan. He wants my money to build a luxury nursery for a child he is biologically incapable of creating. The layers of his delusion are almost impressive. I do not cry. I do not call my lawyer to panic. I close my office door. I lower the blinds. I turn off my desk phone. I boot up my dual monitors and I go to war. I open the secure digital vault containing our joint financial records for the last 3 years. Every bank statement, every credit card receipt, every tax return, mortgage payment, and wire transfer. To the untrained eye, our finances look perfectly normal. David makes a good salary at his tech firm, and I make an excellent living with my agency. We paid our bills on time. We contributed to our shared savings. The ledgers appear balanced. But I am not an untrained eye. I am an apex predator in the financial ecosystem. I start pulling the thread. I begin with David's discretionary spending. At first glance, it is just normal executive lifestyle bloat. Expensive lunches at downtown steakhouses, golf club fees, tech consulting subscriptions. But I notice a rhythm. Every Thursday, there is a recurring withdrawal from our joint checking account, ranging from $300 to $500. It is always labeled as a cash transfer to his personal spending account for client entertainment. I cross-reference those cash transfers with his corporate calendar, which I still have access to through our shared digital family planner. David does not entertain clients on Thursdays. Thursdays are his team's deep work days. He never leaves the office. I dig deeper. I pull the IP addresses and location data from our shared credit card history. I find a series of transactions at high-end boutiques, luxury day spas, and fine dining restaurants located across town, completely out of the way of his daily commute. He masked them under vague vendor names. A charge for $600 at a boutique is categorized in our budget software as office supplies. A $1,000 weekend charge at a luxury resort 2 hours outside the city is categorized as a tech conference registration fee. My fingers fly across the keyboard. I am building a master spreadsheet mapping every single fraudulent transaction. The timeline is undeniable. This did not start as a one-time mistake of passion, because he was depressed about our fertility. The financial bleed started 8 months ago, long before Patricia ramped up her abuse about me not providing an heir, long before David started acting cold and distant. He had been systematically embezzling marital funds to finance an extensive, highly expensive double life with Megan. While I was working 60-hour weeks conducting complex audits to build the firm he now wants, half of he was siphoning our shared wealth to buy Megan diamond necklaces, send her on spa retreats, and pay off her personal credit card debt. I trace a massive $5,000 wire transfer that occurred just 3 months ago. David categorized it as a crucial investment in a friend's startup. I run a trace on the routing number. It does not go to a tech startup. It goes directly to a luxury car dealership. He put down a lease payment for a brand new SUV. I pull up Megan's recent social media posts on my secondary monitor. There it is. A photo posted 3 months ago of Megan posing proudly next to a brand new luxury SUV, captioning it about how blessed she feels for new beginnings and the incredible man supporting her. The audacity is staggering. David has stolen tens of thousands of dollars from me. He has committed textbook marital dissipation of assets. He has left a paper trail so wide and so glaringly obvious that a first-year accounting student could follow it. He was so arrogant, so confident in his intellectual superiority that he actually believed I would never look at the raw data. He thought I would be too emotionally devastated by the divorce to scrutinize the ledgers. I print every single receipt. I print the geolocation tags, the matching social media posts, the fraudulent expense categorizations, and the fake wire transfers. I compile it into a thick, meticulously organized, heavily indexed binder. It is over 100 pages of absolute, undeniable financial ruin. I look at the binder sitting on my desk. This is not just evidence for a divorce mediation. This is leverage. In the state of Washington, marital dissipation of this magnitude does not just mean he loses his claim to my assets. It means he owes me every single cent he stole plus interest, and it practically guarantees a judge will strip him of any right to my business. Furthermore, his employer has a strict morality and financial compliance clause for its executives. If they find out he has been committing structured financial fraud even in his personal life, his career will be instantly jeopardized. David thinks he is going to walk into mediation and bully a heartbroken, barren woman into surrendering her life's work. He thinks he is going to drain my accounts to build a mansion for another man's child. He thinks his mother's smear campaign has broken my spirit. He is about to walk into a slaughterhouse. I slide the massive stack of evidence into my leather briefcase right next to the sealed medical envelope from the fertility clinic. The trap is set. The doors are locked. Now I just have to wait for him to take a seat at the table. The mediation takes place 3 weeks later in a glass-walled conference room overlooking downtown Seattle. It is a neutral, sterile environment designed to keep volatile divorces from turning into physical brawls. I arrive 10 minutes early wearing a sharp navy suit and carrying my leather briefcase. My lawyer, Sarah, sits beside me. Sarah is brilliant, utterly ruthless when necessary, and perfectly aligned with my strategy. We have spent the last 3 weeks preparing for this exact moment. David arrives exactly on time, and of course he does not come alone. Patricia walks in right behind him carrying a designer handbag and wearing an expression of supreme toxic confidence. The mediator, a mild-mannered retired judge named Mr. Hayes, immediately informs Patricia that mediations are strictly between the spouses and their legal counsel. Patricia bristles, crossing her arms. "I am here for moral support," she snaps. "My son is going through a very traumatic time because of this woman. I am not leaving him alone with her." David's lawyer, the aggressive shark he hired, subtly shakes his head at Patricia. "Mrs. Vance, it is highly irregular. However, if Elise consents to your presence, we can allow it in the interest of moving forward." I look at Patricia, taking in her arrogant posture and her absolute certainty that she is about to witness my financial execution. She wants to be here to gloat. She wants front-row tickets to my destruction. I do not mind at all, I say, my voice perfectly calm. Let her stay. In fact, I insist. David smiles, thinking my compliance is a sign of weakness. He takes a seat across from me, radiating the smug, obnoxious energy of a man who believes he has already won. He looks around the sleek conference room, clearly imagining how he is going to spend the massive settlement he expects to extract from me today. Mr. Hayes calls the session to order and outlines the basic structure of the mediation. David's lawyer goes first, launching into his aggressive opening statement. He paints a picture of David as a devoted, long-suffering husband who financially supported my business during its infancy, only to be emotionally abandoned when I supposedly prioritized my career over our marriage. My client is asking for a fair and equitable division of all marital assets, his lawyer states, tapping a silver pen against his legal pad. This includes the primary residence, the joint investment portfolios, and exactly 50% of the valuation of Elise's forensic accounting firm, which was built during the marriage and therefore constitutes joint property. Furthermore, given the emotional distress my client has suffered due to Elise's refusal to start a family, we believe this division is more than generous. David leans back in his chair, looking at me with pure, unadulterated contempt. Patricia lets out a small, satisfied huff, nodding enthusiastically at the lawyer's demands. Sarah, my lawyer, does not flinch. She looks at me, and I give her a subtle nod. "We reject the proposal in its entirety," Sarah says calmly. David's lawyer bristles, instantly shifting into intimidation mode. "With respect, counsel, your client does not have the leverage to reject this out of hand. The business was built during the marriage. Washington is a community property state. If you force us to take this to trial, we will subpoena every single client your firm has. We will drag her business through the mud. We will make this incredibly painful and expensive for her." I reach down and open the brass clasps of my leather briefcase. The click echoes loudly in the quiet room. I pull out the thick, meticulously indexed binder containing my 100-page financial audit. I drop it squarely in the center of the glass conference table with a heavy, satisfying thud. David stares at the binder, a slight frown creasing his forehead. Patricia leans forward, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "What is this?" David's lawyer asks, looking from the binder to Sarah. That, Sarah says smoothly, is a comprehensive forensic audit of your client's financial activities over the past 36 months, personally conducted by my client, who, as you know, is one of the top forensic accountants in the state. I fold my hands on the table and look directly into David's eyes. You wanted to talk about an equitable division of assets, David. I think we should start by discussing the assets you have already divided without my knowledge. I slide the binder toward his lawyer. Turn to tab 3, please. The lawyer hesitates, then flips the binder open. His eyes scan the first page of the section. The color begins to drain from his face almost instantly. As you will see, I explain, keeping my voice utterly devoid of emotion. There is a detailed ledger mapping a series of recurring cash withdrawals from our joint checking account over the past 8 months. My husband categorized these transactions as client entertainment expenses. However, the geolocation data from our shared credit cards cross-referenced with his corporate calendar proves he never left the city on those days. David shifts uncomfortably in his chair. Those were legitimate expenses, he snaps, his voice rising slightly. You are paranoid, Elise. You are making things up because you are bitter. Tab 4. I instruct his lawyer, ignoring David completely. The lawyer flips the page. He is no longer looking arrogant. He is looking like a man who has just realized he walked into a minefield without a map. You will find a series of transactions masked under generic vendor names. I continue, my tone cold and clinical. A $600 charge categorized as office supplies was actually spent at a luxury jewelry boutique. A $1,000 charge categorized as a tech conference registration was actually a weekend stay at a luxury resort 2 hours outside Seattle. Patricia scoffs loudly, crossing her arms defensively. This is ridiculous. My son works hard. He is allowed to take a weekend trip to decompress from the stress of being married to you. I turn my gaze to Patricia, letting my eyes lock onto hers. The weekend trip was for 2 people, Patricia, and he did not take me. David's face goes pale. He realizes exactly what I am doing. He realizes that his secret double life is no longer secret. Tab 7, I say, directing my attention back to the lawyer. This is the most interesting one. 3 months ago, my husband initiated a $5,000 wire transfer from our joint savings account. He categorized it as an investment in a friend's tech startup. The routing number actually belongs to a luxury car dealership. He put down a lease payment on a brand new SUV. I slide a printed screenshot across the glass table. It is the photo from Megan's social media, showing her posing next to the new vehicle, praising the incredible man who supports her. David stares at the photo, his mouth slightly open. He is completely paralyzed. The arrogant tech executive has vanished, replaced by a terrified man who has just been caught red-handed. In the state of Washington, Sarah says, her voice cutting through the heavy silence like a scalpel, this constitutes severe marital dissipation of assets. Your client has systematically embezzled tens of thousands of dollars from the marital estate to finance an extramarital affair. That is not true. David stammers, panic finally setting in. I was going to pay it back. It was a loan. I was just helping out a friend. A friend who is now pregnant with your child, I ask quietly. Patricia gasps loudly, her hand flying to her mouth. She looks at David in shock. David, what is she talking about? What baby? I glance at David, watching him squirm under his mother's sudden, horrified scrutiny. He hasn't told her yet. He hasn't told his precious mother that he is supposedly having a child out of wedlock with my best friend. The realization that I just dropped this bomb in front of Patricia is the cherry on top of this beautiful disaster. But I'm not finished. The audit proves that my husband has stolen approximately $45,000 from our joint accounts, I state clearly. By law, he owes the marital estate every single cent of that money back. Furthermore, this documentation proves a pattern of structured financial fraud. I lean forward, resting my elbows on the table, bringing myself closer to David. If we go to trial, David, this entire binder becomes public record. It becomes admissible evidence in open court, which means it also becomes entirely accessible to your employer. David's eyes widen in sheer terror. His tech firm has a zero-tolerance policy for financial misconduct. If they find out he has been committing structured fraud to hide an affair, he will not just lose his chance at a promotion. He will be terminated immediately, and he will likely be blacklisted from the industry. You would not. David whispers, his voice shaking. You would not destroy my career over this. You tried to destroy my entire life over a lie, I reply coldly. I am simply presenting the facts. David's lawyer closes the binder with a sharp snap. He looks at David with a mixture of anger and absolute disgust. A lawyer can only defend a client if the client does not actively lie to him about severe financial crimes. Mr. Hayes, the lawyer says, addressing the mediator, my client and I need a moment in private. They step out into the hallway. Through the glass walls, I watch the lawyer tear into David. He is pointing at the binder, then at David's chest, clearly furious that he was completely blindsided by this evidence. Patricia remains in the conference room staring at me with a look of pure, unadulterated shock. For the first time in my life, she has absolutely nothing to say. 20 minutes later, they return to the table. David looks physically ill. His arrogance has been completely eradicated. He looks like a man who has just been hit by a freight train. His lawyer sits down, refuses to look at David, and addresses Sarah. My client is prepared to withdraw his petition for any share of the forensic accounting firm. He is also prepared to relinquish his claim on the primary residence provided your client agrees to absorb the remaining mortgage debt. Furthermore, my client agrees to waive any claim to spousal support or the joint investment portfolios. Sarah nods, perfectly composed. In exchange, my client will not pursue civil claims for the dissipated marital assets, and this binder remains entirely confidential, sealed under a strict non-disclosure agreement. The lawyer looks at David. David swallows hard, his eyes dropping to the table. I agree, he mumbles. Sign the papers, David, I say, sliding the draft settlement agreement across the glass. And then you can go build your perfect suburban life with the money you have left, which according to my audit is currently sitting at less than $12,000 in your personal checking account. Good luck buying a house with that. David picks up the pen. His hand is shaking so badly he can barely form the letters. He signs away the house. He signs away my business. He signs away his leverage, his power, and his dignity. I take the signed documents from the table, place them carefully into my briefcase, and snap the brass locks shut. The sound echoes loudly in the quiet room. I stand up, smoothing my suit jacket. It was a pleasure doing business with you, David. I look at Patricia, who is still sitting in her chair, paralyzed by the sheer speed and brutality of her son's defeat. And Patricia, congratulations on the new grandchild. I am sure Megan will make a wonderful addition to your family. I walk out of the conference room, my heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. I leave them sitting in the wreckage of their own making. I have secured my business, my home, and my financial independence. I have legally obliterated the man who tried to destroy me. But as I step into the elevator and watch the doors slide shut, I know this is only phase one. David still believes he is going to be a father. He still believes he has secured a legacy. He thinks the worst is over. He has absolutely no idea that I am still holding the medical file and the real explosion is yet to come. The ink on the divorce settlement is barely dry before the retaliation begins. Patricia and Megan, stripped of the financial windfall they had so eagerly anticipated, realize they have only one currency left to spend: my reputation. If they cannot bankrupt me in the mediation room, they are determined to bankrupt me socially. The smear campaign launches with the coordinated precision of a ruthless political attack ad. It starts subtly at first. A vaguely worded social media post from Megan about the power of unconditional love and stepping up to provide care when others step down. A tearful, highly orchestrated confession from Patricia at her weekly country club luncheon about how her poor son was emotionally starved by a wife who loved her ledger books significantly more than her own husband. Within days, the subtle hints morph into outright character assassination. The narrative they construct is a masterpiece of suburban fiction. According to Megan and Patricia, I am a bitter, barren, career-obsessed ice queen. I am the villain who coldly drove her desperate, loving husband into the arms of his maternal, selfless best friend. In their version of events, Megan did not betray me. She heroically rescued David from a loveless, sterile marriage. She gave him the ultimate gift of a child, a miracle baby, after I selfishly refused to pause my ambition to prioritize our family. The social fallout is immediate and brutally efficient. People I have known for a decade suddenly cannot make eye contact with me. My phone, which used to buzz constantly with invitations to dinner parties, weekend brunches, and charity galas, goes completely silent. The mutual friends David and I shared split down the middle for exactly 48 hours before sliding uniformly over to his side. After all, David and Megan are playing the highly sympathetic roles of the tragic star-crossed lovers building a new family against the odds, while I am just the cold, childless ex-wife working late in a high-rise office. I experienced the shunning firsthand during a routine trip to the upscale grocery store in my neighborhood. I am standing in the produce aisle when I spot Monica, a woman who attended my wedding and co-hosted my 30th birthday party. She sees me, freezes like a deer in headlights, and literally turns her shopping cart around to hurry down the cereal aisle, desperate to avoid acknowledging my existence. Later that week, I stopped by the local country club to formally close out my individual membership account. As I walk through the main dining room, the ambient chatter noticeably drops. I can feel the weight of dozens of judgmental eyes pressing into my back. I catch fragments of hushed whispers from the tables nearby. The words float through the air, heavy with manufactured pity. Tragic. So focused on money. Her poor husband finally escaped. Any other woman might have crumbled under the weight of this coordinated social exile. Any other woman might have taken to the internet to scream the truth, to post the financial audit, to desperately defend her honor against the vicious lies. But I do not say a single word. I do not post a single defense. I lean into the silence. I embrace the villain role entirely. If they want me to be the cold, ruthless corporate machine, I will gladly wear the crown. A forensic accountant understands that a reputation built on fraudulent data is a liability, not an asset. Their social standing is currently leveraged against a massive, catastrophic lie. When that lie inevitably collapses, the resulting shockwave will wipe out everyone who invested in it. I am more than happy to let them build their glass house directly on a fault line. I channel the profound isolation into absolute unyielding professional dominance. The energy I used to spend attending meaningless suburban dinner parties and managing David's fragile ego is now injected directly into my forensic accounting firm. I work with a lethal, quiet focus. While David and Megan are busy curating their fake happy family image on social media, privately complaining about the tight budget they are now forced to live on, since I kept my assets, I am busy acquiring high net worth clients. My firm expands rapidly. I hire 3 new senior analysts. I lease a larger, sleeker office space in a premium downtown high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows. My professional reputation grows inversely to my social one. In the corporate financial world, my ruthlessness is not seen as a character flaw. It is viewed as an elite, highly marketable skill. Corporate board members do not care if I am a warm, maternal figure. They care that I can track a missing $1 million through a complex labyrinth of offshore shell accounts without blinking. It is during this period of silent, relentless grinding that I meet Cole. Cole is 35 years old, a highly successful corporate attorney who operates with the exact same clinical razor-sharp precision that I do. We meet during a massive corporate embezzlement case. He is representing the defrauded board of directors, and my firm is hired by his team to conduct the independent audit. We spend 72 hours locked in a glass conference room together, tearing apart the fraudulent financial records of a corrupt chief executive officer. By the end of the case, a mutual, unspoken respect has blossomed into something much deeper. Cole is brilliant, sharp-witted, and entirely unimpressed by traditional societal expectations. He does not need a wife to prop up his ego. He does not need a maternal figure to validate his masculinity. He looks at me and sees a true equal, a partner who can match him, move for move in a high-stakes intellectual game. We begin dating, quietly, keeping our relationship completely separate from the toxic suburban circus of my past. Our evenings are spent in dimly lit, exclusive downtown restaurants, or in the quiet luxury of his penthouse discussing legal strategies, market trends, and our respective ambitions. He is a sanctuary of intelligence and calm. Eventually, as our relationship deepens, I tell Cole everything. I tell him about the betrayal, the aggressive divorce mediation, the financial audit, and the smear campaign. Patricia and Megan, are actively running against me. Then I tell him the ultimate secret. I tell him about the sealed medical file sitting securely in my home safe. I tell him that David is 100% sterile and that the child Megan is carrying cannot possibly belong to him. Most men would have been shocked. Most men would have urged me to drop the bomb immediately, to clear my name, restore my social standing, and destroy David's fake happiness. Cole simply swirls the expensive scotch in his glass, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his handsome face. He understands the strategy perfectly. He understands the exquisite beauty of strategic patience. "You are letting them dig the hole as deep as possible," Cole says, his eyes gleaming with dark, absolute amusement. "You are letting him fall completely in love with a child that is not his. You are letting Patricia brag to her entire social circle about her new grandchild. You are letting them leverage their entire existence on a biological impossibility so the fall is fatal." "Exactly," I reply, clinking my wineglass against his. I am waiting for the interest to compound. Cole supports my unyielding focus entirely. He never pressures me to act before I am ready. He becomes my silent ally, the only person in the world who knows that the supposed villain of this suburban drama is actually the architect of its ultimate destruction. We watch from a safe, elevated distance as Megan finally gives birth to a baby boy. We watch as David posts hundreds of photos of his so-called legacy, praising Megan online for giving him the beautiful family I supposedly denied him. We watch Patricia throw lavish, pathetic little parties for her new grandson, funded by whatever credit cards she has left. For months, I operate entirely in the shadows, letting the smear campaign burn itself out, letting them believe they have truly won. I focus on my expanding firm, my thriving relationship with Cole, and my own absolute peace. I am perfectly content to let them live their fragile lie until the end of time, provided they stay out of my way. But fate, it seems, has a wonderful sense of irony. The universe does not just want me to hold the truth, it wants me to deliver the execution. And the universe decides to hand me the weapon on a silver platter in the form of a brand new massive corporate contract. The silent grind is about to pay off in ways even I could not have fully anticipated. The paper trail is calling my name, and I am about to follow it straight into the dark beating heart of their deception. 8 months after the divorce settlement was signed, the silent grind of my professional life culminates in a monumental victory. My forensic accounting firm is selected for a highly coveted, fiercely competitive contract. We are retained to conduct an exhaustive compliance audit for Vanguard Horizon Partners. They are one of the most prestigious, aggressive, and highly capitalized venture capital firms on the entire West Coast. Landing this contract does not just boost my firm's revenue, it permanently solidifies my reputation as an elite financial investigator in the corporate sector. I have built a fortress of success out of the bricks David and Megan threw at me. The CEO of Vanguard Horizon is a man named Harrison. He is 48 years old and radiates the kind of intimidating, absolute authority that only accompanies generational wealth and ruthless business tactics. Harrison wears custom-tailored Italian suits that fit like armor. His silver hair is immaculately styled, and his demeanor is entirely devoid of warmth. He is a corporate predator, highly respected and deeply feared by his peers. He is also very publicly and very strategically married. His wife Victoria belongs to a legacy family whose old money provided the initial capital that launched Harrison's entire empire 2 decades ago. Their marriage is an ironclad business merger disguised as a romance. They are the golden couple of Seattle's high society, serving on philanthropic boards and hosting lavish charity galas. A divorce would not merely be a personal inconvenience for Harrison. It would trigger a financial apocalypse that would completely dismantle his venture capital firm and strip him of his power. He has millions of reasons to keep his public image absolutely pristine. During our initial onboarding meeting, my team and I are granted access to Vanguard Horizon's massive investment portfolio. I am scrolling through the long detailed lists of tech startups, corporate acquisitions, and subsidiary firms they finance. The data flows across my dual monitors in endless streams of black and white text. My eyes scan the screen with practiced speed, but suddenly I freeze. A very specific company name jumps out at me from the digital spreadsheet. It is the mid-level tech firm where David is currently employed. I lean closer to the screen, verifying the corporate hierarchy. It is not just a minor investment. Vanguard Horizon Partners is the primary financial backer of David's company. Harrison essentially owns the firm that signs David's paychecks. The sheer, staggering coincidence of it makes the breath catch in my throat. Out of all the venture capital firms operating in the Pacific Northwest, I have been hired by the exact organization that completely controls my ex-husband's professional destiny. David has spent the last year desperately trying to impress the leadership at his company, completely oblivious to the fact that his ultimate boss has just handed me the keys to the entire financial kingdom. That evening, I sit across from Cole in a dimly lit exclusive downtown restaurant. I swirl a glass of expensive red wine and tell him about the portfolio discovery. Cole listens intently, a sharp, appreciative smile playing on his lips. He leans across the table, his dark eyes gleaming with intelligence. The universe has a remarkably dark sense of humor, Cole remarks, raising his glass in a quiet toast. But you have to maintain the wall, Elise. You cannot look for David in those ledgers. I clink my glass against his, my expression deadly serious. I have no intention of looking for David, I reply firmly. I am not auditing his mid-level tech company. I am auditing the parent firm. I am auditing Harrison. It is strictly business. I am a professional, and I will not let personal history compromise a contract of this magnitude. Cole nods, respecting my unyielding focus. He knows I am a vault. The audit itself is a massive, grueling undertaking. My team and I practically move into a secure glass-walled conference room at Vanguard Horizon's corporate headquarters. We spend weeks poring over general ledgers, executive expense reports, offshore asset allocations, and complex tax mitigation strategies. Harrison is surprisingly cooperative, granting us full access to the servers, but his attitude remains entirely aloof. He treats me with the cold, detached respect of a man who recognizes competence but views everyone else as a subordinate. He is completely unaware of the invisible, tangled web connecting our lives. My job is to ensure that the firm's financial practices are strictly compliant ahead of a highly anticipated public offering. This requires scrutinizing absolutely everything, paying special attention to the discretionary corporate accounts controlled directly by the CEO. This is where the true art of forensic accounting happens. Most people believe that financial fraud is loud. They assume it looks like massive sudden cash withdrawals, blatant embezzlement, or dramatic offshore transfers. But high-level corporate fraud is silent. It is a whisper buried beneath mountains of legitimate, boring data. It is a slight rhythmic anomaly hidden within a vast sea of normal daily transactions. You have to know exactly how to listen to the numbers. It is late on a Thursday night. The corporate office is completely empty, save for the security guards patrolling the lobby floors below. The city lights of Seattle glitter brightly outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of my temporary conference room. I am alone, bathed in the blue glow of my monitors, reviewing Harrison's executive discretionary fund. I am running a highly specialized analytical algorithm designed to flag recurring payments that lack corresponding corporate deliverables or clear vendor histories. My screen flashes. The algorithm highlights a specific series of transactions, pulling them from the dense financial noise. I sit up straight, my analytical instincts instantly flaring to life. I zoom in on the highlighted data. There is a monthly wire transfer originating from one of Vanguard Horizon's secondary highly restricted discretionary accounts. The amount is substantial. Exactly $12,500 is being wired out of the firm on the first Tuesday of every single month. I trace the history backward. This exact payment has occurred without fail for the past 14 months. The transfer is categorized internally under a vague accounting code labeled as a retainer for specialized property management consulting. A red flag instantly goes up in my mind. A venture capital firm of this magnitude does not use obscure, unvetted consultants for property management. They contract with massive, heavily insured corporate real estate firms. A $12,000 monthly retainer for unspecified consulting is a classic hallmark of ghost employment or hush money. I isolate the routing number attached to the outgoing wire transfer. The money is being sent directly to an entity registered as Apex Holdings, LLC. I log into the state's corporate registry databases and access federal tax records to pull the formation documents for Apex Holdings. As I read the digital files, my suspicion solidifies into hard fact. It is a textbook shell company. It is registered to a generic registered agent service in Delaware, a state famous for its strict corporate secrecy laws. The entire structure is designed specifically to mask the identity of the true owner. The layers of financial obfuscation are professional, highly expensive, and incredibly deliberate. Whoever established this LLC went to great lengths to ensure that Apex Holdings could never be easily traced back to Vanguard Horizon or to Harrison personally. It is a brilliant setup practically invisible to a standard corporate audit. But they made one tiny arrogant mistake. A mistake only a seasoned forensic accountant working late into the night would ever catch. I cross-referenced the Delaware formation dates with Vanguard Horizon's corporate credit card statements from 14 months ago. I find a match. They paid the initial $200 state formation fee for the LLC using a secondary corporate credit card tied directly to Harrison's executive assistant. They built $1 million vault, but left the receipt for the padlock lying on the front porch. I lean back in my ergonomic desk chair, the glow of the monitor reflecting in my eyes. The money is not paying for legitimate corporate consulting. It is paying for absolute silence. Harrison is moving exactly $150,000 a year out of his venture capital firm to a shadow entity. This is not a clever tax mitigation strategy. This is an active, ongoing cover-up. A man whose entire empire, reputation, and freedom rely completely on his marriage to a wealthy, powerful socialite is hiding a massive recurring personal expense in the corporate ledgers. I know definitively that I have found a major compliance violation. As the lead auditor, I am legally and professionally obligated to trace exactly where that $12,500 goes after it hits the Delaware Shell Company. I need to know what Harrison is so desperate to hide. My fingers fly across the keyboard as I initiate a secondary trace on the outgoing transactions from Apex Holdings, LLC. I pull the curtain back on the Delaware account. The money does not stay in the shell company. It does not go to an offshore bank. It is immediately wired back across the country landing, squarely in a commercial account belonging to a luxury real estate management group located right here in Seattle. I pull the commercial registry for the luxury real estate management group right here in Seattle. The firm manages some of the most exclusive, hyper-expensive residential properties in the Pacific Northwest. $12,500 a month is not just a standard apartment lease. That figure guarantees private elevator access, panoramic views of the skyline, 24-hour concierge staff trained to look the other way, and absolute discretion. My fingers fly across the keyboard as I access the vendor payment portals. I am cross-referencing the routing numbers from Apex Holdings against the incoming payment ledgers of the property management group. I run a specialized sorting algorithm to filter out the noise, narrowing down thousands of corporate transactions until I find the exact match. The funds are being deposited into an escrow account specifically designated for a premium penthouse suite in a gleaming glass tower in the heart of downtown Seattle. I need to see the actual lease agreement. I bypass the standard corporate firewalls using a perfectly legal but highly aggressive compliance audit tool, officially requesting the tenant verification files for this specific unit as part of my venture capital audit. The progress bar on my screen slowly fills. The quiet hum of the server room down the hall is the only sound in the empty corporate headquarters. The PDF document finally loads on my right monitor. I zoom in on the digital signature line at the bottom of the 50-page rental contract. The name printed in bold black ink is Megan. My breath catches sharply in my throat. I sit perfectly still in the quiet, darkened conference room staring at the glowing screen. Megan, my former best friend, The woman who sat at my dining room table 1 year ago crying fake tears and claiming a one-time mistake of passion with my husband. The woman for whom David is currently trying to buy a massive suburban house in Bellevue. The lease agreement clearly shows that Harrison signed as the absolute financial guarantor under the guise of his Delaware shell company. The start date of the lease aligns perfectly with the timeline of her pregnancy. She has been maintaining this luxury downtown penthouse the entire time she has been playing house with David. But a top-tier forensic accountant never stops at a single anomaly. If Harrison is paying for her luxury penthouse, I need to know exactly how deep this clandestine financial pipeline goes. I return to the transaction history of Apex Holdings. I run a secondary algorithm to flag any other outgoing wire transfers connected to her identity. The screen populates with a staggering array of payments. There is a massive recurring monthly allowance of $8,000 wired directly into a private checking account. The name on the account is Megan. Harrison is not just housing her, he is fully funding her entire existence. He is paying her a high six-figure salary simply to exist quietly in the shadows. He is her sugar daddy. I scroll further down the ledger and find a series of enormous itemized medical payments. These are not standard insurance copays. These are out-of-pocket premium concierge medical services. There is a receipt for $25,000 paid directly to the Seattle Medical Center, the exact same prestigious hospital from my cold open. The payment covers a VIP private maternity suite, round-the-clock exclusive nursing staff, and elite postnatal care. Harrison paid for the birth of the child. I find subsequent receipts for high-end baby boutiques, luxury strollers, and custom nursery furniture. There is a specific charge for a $2,000 custom leather diaper bag. The exact same designer diaper bag David will be proudly carrying on his shoulder in the hospital lobby. The financial trail is a glaring neon map of absolute unadulterated betrayal. I lean back in my ergonomic chair, the blue light of the dual monitors reflecting in the glass walls of the empty conference room. The pieces of the puzzle snap together with a violent, breathtaking clarity. The math finally computes flawlessly, answering every single lingering question I have had for the past 12 months. Harrison is the biological father of the baby. He has been carrying on a high-end, incredibly expensive affair with Megan for years. But Harrison is married to Victoria, a woman whose old money legacy anchors his entire venture capital empire. A divorce would trigger a corporate apocalypse that would strip Harrison of his wealth, his status, and his power. When Megan got pregnant, Harrison refused to leave his wife. He refused to acknowledge the child publicly, knowing a society scandal would obliterate him. He needed a foolproof cover story. Megan was trapped. She was pregnant with a billionaire's secret child, accustomed to an $8,000 monthly allowance and a penthouse lifestyle, and she needed a public shield. She needed a man who would gladly claim the baby, provide a legitimate suburban facade, and never ask a single question. She needed a fall guy. She looked around our social circle and found David. She targeted my husband because she knew his psychological weaknesses intimately. Through 10 years of friendship with me, she knew David possessed a massive, fragile ego. She knew he felt deeply emasculated by our fertility struggles. She knew he desperately wanted a legacy to parade in front of his corporate peers to prove his dominance. Most importantly, Megan knew David was arrogant enough to believe that a beautiful maternal woman would genuinely fall for him in a moment of uncontrollable passion. She fed his ego a feast of lies. She told him he was a real man. She told him the pregnancy was a miracle of his own virility. And David, blinded by his own narcissism, bought the deception completely. He never demanded a paternity test. He never questioned how Megan could afford designer diaper bags or premium maternity care, likely believing her lies about maxing out her credit cards or receiving help from relatives. He was so eager to prove I was the broken, useless wife that he threw away our marriage, emptied his bank accounts during our divorce, and tanked his own financial future to proudly raise another man's child. The sociopathic brilliance of Megan's plan is almost impressive. Harrison gets to keep his venture capital empire and his wealthy wife while quietly funding his secret family through a Delaware shell company. Megan gets to live a luxurious double life, cashing Harrison's massive monthly allowance while using David to play the role of the devoted, legitimate suburban father. And David gets to puff out his chest, utterly oblivious to the fact that he is the punchline to the cruelest joke ever told. He is raising his boss's secret love child while bragging about his powerful genetics. I pull a secure encrypted flash drive from my briefcase and plug it into the terminal. I systematically download every single receipt, every wire transfer, every lease agreement, and the original corporate formation documents for Apex Holdings. I create a flawless digital mirror of the evidence. I watch the progress bar inch toward 100%, securing the raw data that will serve as the foundation of my revenge. I sit in the silent, darkened office staring at the undeniable proof displayed across my screens. I have uncovered the exact architecture of their entire fake life. The feeling that washes over me is not anger, nor is it sorrow. It is pure, crystallized power. I do not just have leverage anymore. I have the absolute nuclear launch codes to 3 different lives. I hold the power to instantly obliterate Harrison's pristine marriage and his untouchable corporate standing. I hold the power to cut off Megan's secret funding and expose her as a high-end fraud to the entire city. And I hold the power to completely irrevocably shatter David's fragile, pathetic ego into a million jagged pieces. A cold, magnificent calm settles over my entire body. My heart beats with a steady, rhythmic thud. I am the sole keeper of the most destructive secret in Seattle. I am not going to confront them immediately. I am going to build a bomb so perfect, so structurally sound, that when I finally choose to detonate it, there will be absolutely no survivors. The game has fundamentally changed, and I am the only one who knows the new rules. The shattering of the glass baby bottle pulls us instantly back into the pristine, sterile air of the Seattle Medical Center lobby. The sharp crash echoes off the marble walls, drawing the eyes of every passing doctor and patient. A pool of milk spreads rapidly across the floor, soaking into the grout and splashing against the pristine white toe of David's expensive sneaker. The baby, startled by the sudden violent noise and the rigid tension radiating from his mother's body, lets out a piercing, high-pitched wail. David lets out an exaggerated sigh of annoyance. He pulls a handkerchief from his pocket and bends down, far more concerned with wiping the milk off his designer footwear than checking on his wife. He mutters something patronizing under his breath, completely oblivious to the fact that Megan is not merely clumsy today. She is currently experiencing a catastrophic full-body panic attack. Her hands are shaking so violently she can barely hold the crying child against her chest. Her eyes are locked in a dead stare, fixed squarely on the tall, silver-haired billionaire striding directly toward us down the adjacent corridor. Harrison does not usually stop for spills or crying children. Men of his immense wealth and corporate stature move through the world expecting obstacles to automatically clear from their path. He is flanked by 2 hospital administrators who are speaking to him in hushed, deferential tones. But as Harrison approaches the intersection of the lobby, his sharp, predatory gaze sweeps over our chaotic little trio and lands directly on me. His pace slows. The authoritative mask he wears for the hospital staff softens just a fraction into an expression of professional respect. Harrison knows exactly who I am. I am the lead forensic auditor who currently holds the keys to his entire venture capital empire. I am the woman spending 70 hours a week tearing through his corporate ledgers. To him, I am an apex predator, in a tailored suit, an equal in the high-stakes game of corporate survival. Elise, Harrison says, his deep, commanding voice cutting through the noise of the crying baby. I certainly did not expect to run into my lead auditor during a hospital board tour. Is everything all right here? The hospital administrators immediately halt behind him, standing at attention, like loyal soldiers waiting for their general's command. Everything is perfectly fine, Harrison, I reply, my voice smooth and utterly calm. I am just running into some old acquaintances. The moment the billionaire utters my name with such clear professional reverence, David's head snaps up from his ruined sneakers. He looks at Harrison taking in the custom Italian suit, the silver hair, and the unmistakable aura of extreme wealth. Then recognition hits him like a bolt of lightning. David works for a mid-level tech company, but he knows exactly who holds the strings to his corporate puppet show. He recognizes the primary financial backer of his entire firm. He recognizes the man he has spent the last year desperately trying to impress from afar. David practically vibrates with sudden desperate sycophancy. He completely abandons his ruined shoes and forcefully shoves himself into Harrison's line of sight, desperate to capitalize on this miraculous networking opportunity. He stands up straight, puffs out his chest, and plasters on a sickeningly eager smile. "Mr. Harrison," David says, practically shouting over the baby's cries to ensure he is heard. "It is an absolute honor to meet you, sir. I am David. I am a senior director of marketing at your tech subsidiary. I have been following your investment strategies closely. Your latest acquisition model was brilliant." Harrison looks at David the way a lion looks at a particularly annoying insect. He offers a brief, tight nod, clearly entirely uninterested in conversing with a low-level employee who is sweating with desperation. But David cannot read the room. He is too blinded by his own massive ego and the desperate need to prove his worth. He thinks this is his golden moment to shine, a chance to show this titan of industry that he is a man of substance, a family man, a man with a legacy. "Please allow me to introduce my family." David continues, gesturing grandly toward the trembling, pale woman standing beside him. "This is my beautiful wife, Megan. And this little guy right here," he reaches over and pats the crying baby on the head, "is my new son. My pride and joy. My legacy." The air in the lobby instantly turns to solid ice. Harrison freezes. The billionaire corporate raider, the man who controls entire markets with a single phone call, suddenly looks like he has been struck by a physical blow. His eyes slowly travel from David's eager, pathetic smile to Megan's face. Megan looks like she is about to faint. She is clutching the baby so tightly her knuckles are bone white. She cannot speak. She cannot breathe. She is staring at the man who pays for her luxury downtown penthouse, the man who funds her secret $8,000 monthly allowance, the man who actually fathered the child she is currently passing off as David's legacy. For a terrifying, stretched-out second, absolute silence falls over our little circle. The hospital administrators look confused. David stands proudly waiting for a compliment. Harrison swallows hard, his throat working convulsively as he tries to maintain his ironclad composure. He offers a stiff, barely perceptible nod toward Megan, his eyes wide with suppressed, suffocating panic. "It is a pleasure," Harrison manages to say, his voice suddenly sounding tight and hollow. David beams, thoroughly convinced he has just secured his corporate future. He looks over at me, his eyes flashing with vindictive triumph. He thinks he has just won. He thinks he has successfully humiliated me in front of his ultimate boss by parading his fake fertility and his stolen family. He wants me to feel small. I do not feel small. I feel like a god. I take one slow, deliberate step forward, closing the distance until I am standing right next to Harrison. The scent of his expensive cologne mixes with the smell of spilled milk. I do not look at David. I keep my eyes locked entirely on the billionaire. I lean in, invading Harrison's personal space just enough to ensure that my voice is meant only for his ears, but clear enough that the threat is absolute. "It is funny how much the boy looks like you, Harrison." I casually mention, my tone, conversational, light, and utterly lethal. "By the way, the compliance audit on that Delaware Shell LLC condo lease is completely finished. We found the invoices for the maternity ward to be particularly fascinating." I step back and watch the total physiological collapse of a titan. Harrison pales so rapidly his skin takes on a gray, sickly hue. The air leaves his lungs in a sharp, ragged gasp. His eyes widen in absolute, unadulterated terror. He realizes instantly that his pristine marriage, his massive fortune, and his untouchable corporate standing are entirely in the palm of my hand. He realizes I know every single dirty detail of his clandestine existence. He is a billionaire predator who has just realized he is standing barefoot in a bear trap. Megan hears my whisper. She lets out a sharp, hysterical sob. She begins hyperventilating, her chest heaving as she physically stumbles backward, her expensive boots slipping on the spilled milk. She shakes her head frantically, her eyes darting between me and Harrison, trapped in a nightmare she cannot charm her way out of. David is utterly oblivious to the silent nuclear detonation that has just occurred. All he sees is my whisper, Harrison's sudden pallor, and his wife's escalating panic attack. His fragile ego instantly misinterprets the entire scene. He assumes I have just insulted him to his boss. He assumes I am deliberately sabotaging his career out of bitter, barren spite. "What is your problem, Elise?" David erupts, his voice echoing loudly across the marble lobby, drawing the attention of the security guards near the front doors. "Are you really that pathetic? Are you so completely consumed by jealousy that you have to try and ruin my networking moment? You cannot stand the fact that Megan is twice the woman you are. You cannot stand that she gave me a real child while you are just an empty, useless corporate machine." He points a finger directly in my face, his face turning red with aggressive, toxic rage. "You need to get out of my sight. You need to walk away and accept that you are a failure." I do not blink. I do not raise my voice. I reach down and slowly unclasp the brass locks of my leather briefcase. The sharp metallic clicks sound like a gun being cocked. I reach inside and pull out a thick, sealed manila envelope. It bears the official logo of the Seattle Reproductive Medicine Center. It is the exact same medical file I picked up from Dr. Evans 1 year ago, the file David was too arrogant to wait for. I hold the envelope up. The bright fluorescent lights of the lobby illuminate the medical seal. "I am not jealous, David." I state, my voice ringing out with crystal clear, chilling authority that cuts straight through his pathetic shouting. "And I am certainly not a failure. Honestly, I am just utterly amazed by your blinding, monumental confidence." I step forward and forcefully slam the heavy medical folder directly onto David's chest. The impact makes him stagger back a half step. He instinctively brings his hands up to catch the envelope, clutching his own biological death warrant against his designer sweater. "Read the file," David I demand, loudly, ensuring that every single person in our immediate vicinity hears exactly what I am saying. "Open it and read the raw data you ran away from 1 year ago. You have been 100% irreversibly sterile since you were a child. Your body cannot produce a single viable cell." David freezes, staring down at the manila envelope in his hands. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. His brain is trying to reject the information, but the sheer weight of my absolute certainty is pinning him to the floor. I turn my gaze toward the trembling, hyperventilating woman clutching the crying baby. Then I look at the terrified billionaire standing frozen beside me. "You do not have a legacy, David," I say, delivering the final devastating blow. "You have a massive, crushing delusion. That baby does not have a single drop of your blood in his veins. That is Harrison's son." The silence that descends upon the lobby is absolute, suffocating, and beautifully destructive. The silence in the lobby is heavy enough to crush bone. David stares at the thick manila envelope resting against his chest. His brain simply cannot process the data. It defies the core architecture of his entire identity. He looks at me, his face twisting into a mask of pure, frantic denial. He throws the folder onto the marble floor. It slides to a stop near the puddle of spilled milk. "You forged this!" David spits, his voice trembling with manic, desperate anger. "You are so bitter, so twisted by your own failure, that you actually printed fake medical records to try and ruin my family. You are psychotic, Elise." I do not flinch. "Call Dr. Evans," I reply calmly. "Her direct extension is printed on the letterhead. Ask her to read your chart over the phone. Ask her to explain the permanent tissue damage." David refuses to look down at the file. He turns his frantic gaze to Harrison, expecting his powerful boss to back him up to throw security at me. But Harrison is already retreating. The billionaire takes 2 quick steps backward, his face slick with a cold sweat. He does not say a single word in David's defense. He does not deny my accusation. Harrison turns on his heel and practically sprints toward the sliding glass doors, abandoning his hospital tour, abandoning Megan, and fleeing the detonation zone like a terrified criminal. Harrison's cowardly exit is the first real crack in David's delusion. He turns to Megan. He needs her to laugh to call me crazy to reassure him of his virility. But Megan is weeping hysterically. She is shaking her head, clutching the baby, unable to form a single coherent sentence. Her terror is absolute. Tell her she is insane, David demands, grabbing Megan's arm with a desperate bruising grip. Tell her this is my son. Megan just sobs, unable to meet his eyes. That is all it takes. The seed of doubt violently takes root in David's mind. He needs proof. He needs scientific validation to restore his shattered pride. We are getting a test, David snarls, completely ignoring the stares of the hospital staff. Right now. We are going to a private lab and I am going to bring the results to your office, Elise, and force you to beg for my forgiveness on your knees. He violently drags a hysterical Megan toward the exit. The baby wails loudly, sensing the chaotic, destructive energy. I stand in the lobby and watch them leave. I do not feel threatened by his promise. I feel the calm, quiet satisfaction of an auditor who has just submitted the final report. I do not need to be in the room to know exactly how the next 48 hours unfold. The sequence of events is as predictable as a mathematical formula. David drives recklessly to an expedited private DNA testing facility downtown. He pays an exorbitant fee for immediate 24-hour results. The technician swabs the inside of his cheek, then swabs the crying baby. During the entire physical act of collecting the genetic material, Megan completely breaks down in the clinic waiting room. She is sobbing uncontrollably because she already knows the outcome. The clinical environment strips away her ability to lie. But David is fueled by pure adrenaline and denial. He refuses to speak to her. He refuses to sleep. He locks himself in the home office of their expensive rental house, pacing the floor, staring at his email inbox. For 24 agonizing hours, the tension builds until it becomes toxic. Megan paces the living room, holding the child, realizing her luxury life is rapidly evaporating. The $8,000 monthly allowance from Harrison is gone. The penthouse lifestyle is dead. She is trapped in a suburban house with a man who is about to realize she used him as a human shield. The email arrives this next evening. David opens the encrypted portal with shaking fingers. He downloads the PDF. He scrolls past the medical jargon straight to the bottom line. The probability of paternity is 0%. The numbers do not lie. The clinical data confirms exactly what I told him in the hospital lobby. He is not the father. He has never been a father. His entire legacy is a biological impossibility. David's entire masculine identity collapses in a single devastating instant. He storms out of the office and confronts Megan in the living room. He screams at her, throwing the printed test results onto the coffee table. He demands the truth. He demands to know who the father is, even though I already told him. Cornered, terrified, and stripped of all her leverage, Megan finally confesses. The ugly, unvarnished truth pours out of her. She screams right back at him, admitting that the child belongs to Harrison. She confesses that she and the billionaire had been carrying on a high-end affair for years. When she got pregnant, Harrison explicitly refused to leave his wealthy wife. He refused to acknowledge the baby publicly because a society scandal would destroy his venture capital empire. Megan needed a stable life. She needed public legitimacy. She needed someone to play the role of the devoted father so she could continue collecting Harrison's secret hush money without raising suspicion. She looks David directly in the eye and delivers the fatal blow to his ego. She tells him she chose him because he was gullible. She tells him he was so desperately insecure about our fertility struggles, so eager to prove he was a real man, that he made the perfect target. She used him because his arrogance blinded him to reality. David falls to his knees. The betrayal obliterates him. The woman he left his marriage for, the best friend he thought he stole from me, only viewed him as a convenient, pathetic tool. But the personal devastation is only the first phase of his ruin. The professional execution happens the very next morning. Harrison is a man who operates on pure self-preservation. When he fled the hospital lobby, he went straight into crisis management mode. He knows that I have completed the compliance audit. He knows I have the paper trail connecting his Delaware shell company to Megan's luxury penthouse and maternity care. He realizes that David is an unpredictable, highly volatile liability. If David goes public with the truth, if he files a lawsuit or leaks the story to the press out of anger, Harrison's wife will find out. The resulting divorce will trigger a corporate apocalypse. Harrison cannot allow David to speak. He has to eradicate the threat immediately. Harrison uses his ultimate leverage. As the primary financial backer of the tech company where David works, Harrison wields absolute authority. He contacts the board of directors early the next morning. He does not give them the personal details. He simply issues a ruthless corporate mandate. He threatens to pull all of his venture capital funding from the firm unless David is terminated immediately, citing an unspecified compliance concern. The tech company board panics. They cannot afford to lose their primary investor over a mid-level marketing director. They comply without a second thought. David arrives at his office, his personal life in absolute ruins, hoping to bury himself in his work. He does not even make it to his desk. He is intercepted at the elevator bank by the chief executive officer and two armed security guards. The CEO does not offer an explanation. He does not offer a severance package. He simply informs David that his employment is terminated effective immediately. He is stripped of his security badge, stripped of his stock options, and publicly escorted out of the building carrying his belongings in a cardboard box. In the span of 48 hours, David loses absolutely everything. He loses the child he thought was his legacy. He loses the woman he destroyed his marriage for. He loses his high-paying job, his corporate reputation, and his entire future. He is left standing on the sidewalk outside his former office building, completely broke, utterly humiliated, and professionally radioactive. Meanwhile, Harrison does not just execute David, he cuts off Megan completely. The Delaware Shell Company is instantly dissolved. The $8,000 monthly allowance is frozen. The luxury penthouse lease is terminated. Megan is left with a baby, no income, and the terrifying realization that she has been permanently discarded by the billionaire who promised to take care of her. They are both drowning in the exact same ocean, pulled down by the heavy chains of their own deception. And I am sitting comfortably in my corner office, watching the market correct itself with flawless, brutal efficiency. I do not have to lift a finger to destroy them. I simply presented the raw data, stepped back, and let their own toxic choices tear their lives apart. The financial audit of their fake reality is complete. The debts have been called in. The emotional bankruptcy is absolute. And the best part is the public humiliation has not even begun. Patricia is still blissfully unaware of the catastrophic implosion of her son's life, and she is about to host the most disastrous social event of the decade. 2 weeks passed since David was escorted out of his office building. 2 weeks of absolute agonizing silence from his end. He has not told his mother. He has not told his extended family. He is too cowardly, too paralyzed by the absolute destruction of his ego to admit to the world that his entire life is a fraud. And because he is a coward, he allows Patricia to walk blindly into the most devastating public execution in the history of Seattle high society. Patricia is completely unaware of the hospital showdown, the DNA results, or her son's catastrophic termination. In her mind, she is still the reigning matriarch of a perfect wealthy family. To celebrate the first birthday of her supposed grandson, she orchestrates a lavish, wildly expensive party at the Emerald Crest Country Club. It is not just a birthday party, it is a coronation. She invites over 100 guests, including her entire social circle, David's former colleagues, and wealthy neighbors. She spares absolutely no expense. Then she makes the ultimate fatal mistake. She sends an invitation to my office. It arrives on thick gold embossed cardstock. It is a calculated, deeply spiteful insult. Patricia wants me to know that she won. She wants me to sit in my office, read the invitation, and weep over the family I failed to provide. She expects me to throw it in the trash and spend the weekend wallowing in bitter isolation. I do not throw it in the trash. I RSVP for two. Saturday afternoon arrives bathed in crisp golden sunlight. The Emerald Crest Country Club is a sprawling estate of manicured green lawns, white columns, and exclusive wealth. I pull up to the valet stand in Cole's sleek black sports car. I step out wearing a stunning floor-length emerald silk gown that moves like liquid glass. My hair is perfectly styled. My makeup is flawless. I am wearing diamond earrings I bought for myself after closing my first $1 million quarter. Cole steps out beside me, looking like a lethal corporate shark in a custom-tailored charcoal suit. We do not look like a defeated ex-wife and her pity date. We look like royalty arriving to collect a debt. We walk through the grand double doors and step into the main ballroom. The scale of Patricia's arrogance is staggering. There are massive floral arrangements on every table, a towering four-tier cake, and a string quartet playing softly in the corner. Waiters circulate with silver trays of champagne. The room is packed with Seattle's elite all chatting and admiring the birthday boy. I scan the room and immediately locate the key players. Megan is standing near the cake table holding the baby. She looks absolutely terrified. She is wearing a designer dress, but she looks like she is standing on a trap door. She knows Harrison cut her off. She knows David knows the truth. She is only here because David forced her to keep up appearances, or perhaps because she is too paralyzed by fear to confess to Patricia herself. Then I see David. He is standing at the far end of the room, near the private bar, as far away from the baby as physically possible. The arrogant tech executive is completely gone. He looks like a ghost. His suit hangs loosely on his frame. His skin is gray. He is holding a glass of amber liquid, gripping it so tightly his knuckles are white. He tosses the drink back and immediately signals the bartender for another. He is drinking heavily, trying to numb the crushing weight of his reality. And then there is Patricia. She is holding court in the center of the ballroom, wearing a pastel suit and a string of pearls, accepting compliments from her wealthy friends. She turns her head and spots me walking into the room with Cole. The reaction is instantaneous. The smug, victorious smile slides right off her face, replaced by a mask of pure aristocratic outrage. She never actually expected me to show up. She sent the invitation as a weapon, not a genuine request. Seeing me standing there looking radiant, wealthy, and accompanied by an incredibly handsome, successful man short-circuits her brain. She cannot handle the fact that I am not broken. Patricia decides to double down. She decides to use this public forum to put me in my place once and for all. She wants to humiliate me so thoroughly that I will flee the country club in tears, proving to all her friends that she is the ultimate victor. She signals the string quartet to stop playing. She grabs a crystal champagne glass and taps it sharply with a silver spoon. The ringing sound cuts through the chatter. The 100 guests fall silent, turning their attention to the matriarch. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my beautiful grandson today. Patricia projects her voice across the ballroom, ensuring every single person is listening. Family is the most important thing in the world. A true family is built on legacy, on providing the next generation, and on selfless love. She turns her body to face me directly, pointing me out to the entire room, which is why I am so incredibly shocked to see my son's ex-wife standing here today. A collective gasp ripples through the crowd. People begin to whisper, stepping aside to clear a path between me and Patricia. Cole stands firmly at my side, his presence an immovable anchor of support. I do not flinch. I keep my posture perfectly straight, my expression an unbothered, polite mask. I invited you out of pity, Elise, Patricia declares loudly, her voice dripping with venomous condescension. But I frankly did not think you would have the absolute gall to show your face. Why are you here? Did you come to look at the family you were biologically incapable of giving my son? Did you come to stare at the legacy you tried to deny him with your selfish, barren career? You do not belong here. This party is for real women, women who know how to be mothers. The silence in the ballroom is deafening. It is a brutal, horrific public attack. Several guests look visibly uncomfortable, shifting their weight and staring at the floor. Megan lets out a small, terrified whimper from the cake table. I do not raise my voice. I do not defend my fertility. I do not even address Patricia's insults. I simply smile, a cold, terrifying smile, and I look past her directly at the man drinking himself to death at the bar. You should really ask your son why I'm here, Patricia, I say, my voice ringing out clear and sharp across the silent room. Ask David about his legacy. Patricia scoffs, crossing her arms. My son has nothing to say to you. He is a proud father. He has everything he ever wanted. David. I call his name loudly, my voice cracking like a whip. Are you going to tell her, or am I? Every eye in the ballroom turns to the bar. David stands there swaying slightly. The heavy drinking has stripped away his cowardice and replaced it with a volatile, explosive despair. He looks at his mother standing in the center of the room, bragging about a legacy that does not exist. He looks at Megan, the woman who played him for an absolute fool, clutching another man's child. And he looks at me, the woman he threw away standing in emerald silk with a man who is twice the professional he will ever be. The pressure finally reaches the critical breaking point. The boiler combusts. David slams his whiskey glass down on the mahogany bar so hard the crystal shatters. The sound makes Patricia jump. "Shut up, Mom!" David screams, his voice tearing from his throat in a raw, animalistic roar. "Just shut your mouth!" Patricia recoils as if she has been physically struck. "David, what is wrong with you? You are drunk. Do not speak to me like that in front of our guests." David stumbles forward, ignoring the crowd, ignoring the social etiquette his mother worships. He marches directly to the center of the ballroom. He reaches into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulls out a crumpled, folded piece of paper. It is the expedited DNA test result from the private lab. He has been carrying it around like a physical weight for 2 weeks. He throws the crumpled paper directly onto the main table right next to the massive 4-tier birthday cake. "Read it!" David screams, pointing a shaking finger at the document. "Read it out loud to all your friends, Mom. Tell them about my amazing legacy." Patricia stares at the paper, her hands trembling. She refuses to touch it. David does not wait for her. He turns to the crowd of 100 silent, horrified guests and delivers his own execution. "I am sterile!" David shouts, the confession tearing out of him in a wave of absolute agony. "I have been sterile since I was 12 years old. I cannot have children. I will never have children. That boy is not my son." A wave of shocked, horrified murmurs crashes through the ballroom. People are covering their mouths. David turns his furious, tear-filled eyes toward Megan. He points at her, his voice dripping with pure, unadulterated hatred. She is a fraud. She is a lying, gold-digging fraud. She was sleeping with my boss for years. She got pregnant by a billionaire who refused to leave his wife, and she used me as a pathetic, gullible fall guy. She used me to pay for her life while he paid for her penthouse. Megan bursts into loud, hysterical sobs. She tries to back away, clutching the baby, but she is trapped against the dessert table. The pristine image of the loving maternal savior is completely incinerated. "And it gets better, Mom." David continues, his voice breaking into a manic, devastated laugh. "My boss found out that Elise knew the truth. He panicked. He cut Megan off, and he fired me to protect his own reputation. I do not have a job. I do not have an income. I do not have a wife. I do not have a son. I am completely, utterly bankrupt." David falls to his knees in the middle of the ballroom floor, burying his face in his hands, weeping openly in front of his former colleagues, his neighbors, and his mother's country club friends. The arrogant tech executive is reduced to a broken, weeping shell. Patricia stares at her son on the floor. She looks at Megan, who is sobbing and refusing to deny the accusations. She looks at the crumpled DNA test on the table. The realization that her entire social standing, her pristine family image, and her aggressive superiority are based on a catastrophic lie hits her all at once. The sheer magnitude of the public humiliation overwhelms her nervous system. Patricia's eyes roll back in her head. Her knees buckle and she faints dead away, collapsing onto the patterned carpet of the country club ballroom. Chaos instantly erupts. Several guests rush forward to attend to Patricia. Megan, seeing her window of opportunity, turns and flees the ballroom in tears, running out the side doors with the baby, desperate to escape the judging eyes of the entire Seattle social elite. David remains on the floor, ignoring his unconscious mother, consumed entirely by his own ruin. I stand perfectly still, watching the smoke clear from the blast radius. I do not feel pity. I do not feel anger. I simply feel the absolute satisfying balance of a perfectly audited ledger. I look up at Cole. He looks down at me, a tight, approving smile on his face. He offers me his arm. I think the party is over, Cole says quietly. I loop my arm through his. Yes, I agree, stepping carefully around the chaos. It is definitely time to go. We turn our backs on the wreckage and walk out of the ballroom, leaving them to drown in the exact same toxic waters they tried so desperately to drown me in. The news of the country club disaster spreads through Seattle faster than a forest fire. Within 24 hours, the fake reality David and Megan built is reduced to absolute ash. Megan, desperate, terrified, and entirely stripped of her luxury lifestyle, makes a catastrophic miscalculation. She attempts to formally sue Harrison for child support, officially filing the paternity paperwork in public family court. She foolishly thinks she can force the billionaire into a corner and demand a permanent settlement. Instead, she triggers a financial and social apocalypse. The court filing hits the public record, and Harrison's wife Victoria discovers the truth immediately. Victoria does not cry. She is old money cold, calculating, and utterly ruthless. She files for divorce the very next morning. Because Harrison committed adultery and publicly humiliated her legacy family, Victoria's high-powered legal team triggers an ironclad morality clause in their prenuptial agreement. She strips Harrison of half his empire, forces him to step down as the head of his own venture capital firm, and publicly destroys his corporate reputation. Harrison is left bleeding millions, completely ousted from the industry he once ruled with an iron fist. Megan gets her court-ordered child support, but it is calculated on Harrison's drastically reduced post-divorce income. It barely covers the rent for a standard cramped suburban apartment. There are no more downtown penthouses. There are no more designer diaper bags or luxury spas. She is completely isolated, despised by the high society circle she tried so desperately to infiltrate, and trapped, raising a child entirely alone. Her reputation as a manipulative fraud makes her a social pariah. David falls even harder. The tech industry in the Pacific Northwest is a small, tightly knit community. Harrison's explosive downfall and the viral gossip from the country club ensure that David's name is permanently blacklisted across the entire sector. No reputable firm will hire a mid-level executive known for extreme public instability, mental breakdowns, and direct association with a major corporate scandal. His bank accounts, already severely depleted from his reckless spending, and our divorce settlement are completely drained. He is forced to sell his luxury SUV just to pay his aggressive divorce lawyer the remaining legal fees he owes. With absolutely zero options left, David packs his few remaining possessions in black garbage bags and moves into his mother's dark, unfinished basement. Patricia, having barely survived the sheer humiliation of her fainting spell, refuses to leave her house. She drops out of her country club, ignores her phone calls, and hides from the grocery store. She is completely ostracized by the wealthy friends she spent decades trying to impress. They live together in that silent, oppressive house, drowning in their own shared toxicity, blaming each other for their total ruin. I do not read about their misery online. I do not have to. The closure I need comes marching right through the heavy glass doors of my forensic accounting firm 4 months later. I am standing in my expansive corner office reviewing the final ledgers of a highly lucrative international merger when my assistant frantically buzzes my desk phone. Before she can even explain the security breach in the lobby, my solid oak office door swings open. David bursts into the room. He is completely unrecognizable from the arrogant, chest-puffing executive who blocked my path in the hospital lobby a year ago. He is gaunt. His clothes hang loosely off his frame, wrinkled and unwashed. The absolute desperation rolling off him is physically repulsive. He looks around my massive sunlit office, taking in the custom mahogany desk, the panoramic views of downtown Seattle, and the undeniable proof of my massive success. His eyes fill with frantic tears. "Elise!" He gasps, practically stumbling forward. "Please, you have to listen to me. I was wrong. I do not stand up. I do not raise my voice." I calmly press the silent security button mounted under my desk, lean back in my plush leather chair, and watch him unravel. I was tricked! David sobs, his voice cracking as he grips the edge of my desk with shaking hands. Megan manipulated me. She preyed on my insecurities. She knew how badly I wanted a family, and she used me to hide her affair. I was a fool, Elise. I was a stupid, arrogant fool. But I still love you. I never stopped loving you. We can fix this. I know we can. I will do anything. I will go to therapy. I will work for your firm. Please, Elise, I have absolutely nothing left. He falls to his knees on the carpet, burying his face in his hands, weeping like a broken, pathetic child. He expects me to feel sympathy. He thinks my maternal instinct, the very thing he endlessly mocked me for supposedly lacking, will magically kick in and save him from the consequences of his own horrific actions. The door to my office opens again. Cole walks in, his dark eyes instantly assessing the threat kneeling on the floor. Two massive building security guards step in right behind him, their hands resting cautiously on their utility belts. Cole steps gracefully around David's weeping form and comes to stand directly behind my chair, resting one warm, heavy hand firmly on my shoulder. His presence is a quiet, lethal warning. David looks up, his tear-streaked face registering Cole's protective stance and the unmistakable bond between us. The reality of my new life, my new partner, and my total chilling indifference finally crushes the last ounce of his delusional hope. "You made your bed, David," I state clearly, my voice cold, precise, and completely devoid of mercy. "Now go bankrupt in it." I nod to the guards. They step forward, grab David by the arms, and haul him to his feet. He does not fight them. He lacks the energy. He just sobs openly as they drag him out of my office, down the polished hallway, and out of my life forever. I turn back to my dual monitors, smoothly picking up my pen, and get back to work. 2 years pass since the day I closed the door on my old life. The passage of time is the ultimate auditor, balancing the ledgers and proving exactly where true value lies. I step out onto the expansive, wraparound balcony of my custom-built home in the hills above Seattle. The evening air is crisp and clean, smelling of pine trees and the distant salt water of the Puget Sound. The sunset paints the sky in brilliant strokes of violet and gold, reflecting off the massive glass windows of the house Cole and I designed together. There are no compromises here. Every single detail of this life is something we built with absolute intention, mutual respect, and authentic love. My forensic accounting firm has just closed its fourth quarter, officially reaching record-breaking profits. I am widely recognized as the top corporate auditor on the entire West Coast. My client list includes multinational corporations who pay exorbitant retainers specifically for my ruthless, unyielding dedication to the truth. I am a titan in my own right, wielding a kind of quiet, absolute power that no one can ever take away from me, because I earned every single fraction of it myself. Cole walks out onto the balcony holding 2 steaming mugs of decaffeinated tea. He is wearing a comfortable gray sweater, looking perfectly at ease in the peaceful sanctuary we have created. He hands me a mug, wraps his free arm around my waist, and pulls me gently against his side. He presses a soft kiss to my temple, his presence a constant, unwavering anchor in my world. I lean back against him, letting out a deep, contented sigh. I look out over the glittering lights of the city below us, thinking about the journey that brought me to this exact altitude. I remember the sterile waiting room of the fertility clinic. I remember the arrogant smirks, the vicious lies, and the crushing betrayal. I remember being told that my ambition had broken my body, that my career made me an empty shell, and that I was completely incapable of leaving a legacy. I smile, a genuine, radiant smile that warms me from the inside out. I place my hand gently over my stomach. The slight, undeniable curve resting beneath the fabric of my dress is the greatest triumph of all. Cole rests his hand carefully over mine, his fingers splaying protectively over the life growing inside me. We are expecting our first child, a baby girl who will be raised in a home overflowing with absolute equality, fierce intelligence, and unconditional love. She will never be used as a prop for a fragile male ego. She will never be told that her ambition makes her defective. She will know that her mother is a warrior who burns down toxic empires and builds beautiful empires of her own. I take a sip of my warm tea, breathing in the sweet, peaceful air of my beautiful reality. The math is finally perfectly balanced. The truth is irrefutable. I am entirely whole. The only thing useless in my past was the family I left behind. The greatest lesson I learned from this entire ordeal isn't about how to execute the perfect revenge. It is about the unshakable power of knowing your own worth. When toxic people are desperate to protect their own fragile egos or hide their wrongdoings, they will project their failures onto you. David and Patricia tried to convince me that my ambition made me defective and that I was biologically and fundamentally useless. It is terrifyingly easy to internalize the false narratives others create to diminish us. But the truth is, your value is never determined by someone else's inability to appreciate it. Furthermore, this journey taught me the profound strength of silence and emotional discipline. When we are betrayed, our first instinct is often to scream, to defend ourselves, and to seek immediate public vindication. But true power lies in stepping back. By refusing to engage in their smear campaign and focusing entirely on my own growth, I allowed them to build their glass house directly on a fault line. You do not always have to fight your abusers. Sometimes you just have to step out of their way and let the weight of their own lies crush them. Ultimately, losing the wrong people is not a tragedy. It is the universe's greatest gift. Stripping away the toxic relationships in my life was the exact thing that made room for authentic love, unprecedented success, and the true family I always deserved. Have you ever had to walk away from a toxic relationship or a coordinated smear campaign to protect your peace? How did you find the courage to rebuild your life on your own terms? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story of resilience and strategic justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more empowering stories. Remember, your worth is never defined by the people who failed to see it.